Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in. It's time for Hoopsville on a Tuesday. Yeah, on a Tuesday. We are coming to you on a special day. It was an exhausting weekend and had little to do with the storm, actually, though we got a weird storm. Excuse me, needed a cup of coffee there, or sip there. In all my years of living in Chicago, Maine, going to school in New England for prep, relatives who live in upstate New York in a snow zone, I have never seen it turn to sleet with a temperature that's not relatively close to freezing. This storm turned to sleet. We were in the teens, and we stayed in the teens. The amount of warm air that went over the top, insane. We got like 8 to 10 inches of snow, then like an inch or two of sleet on top of that, I think. Made for an interesting time, and now it's freezing, so the snow's staying, which is my nirvana. May have another storm coming up, but that's not why we got delayed to Tuesday. Since we did the show on Thursday, the only time I think I was at home until Sunday was to sleep. Just other responsibilities, other things to go, other things to do. I say that, but I have a feeling maybe I was somewhere Thursday. I wasn't somewhere Thursday night, but it's literally been it was packing. That's what I was doing. It's just nonstop packing. So my son's part of a robotics team at his school, and for the 4th straight year, I've been in charge of web streaming that. But every single year, something changes with the setup, and I have to adjust to that. And there is so little ability to test these things ahead of time. It's not like a normal broadcast. There's a software component, but that software has to be running on a system that I can access, and I can't access it till anyway. So I was all day. I had a game on Friday morning. Then I was there all day Friday setting up. And then Saturday, we're all there. I mean, literally 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. for the event. And then we went to friends for dinner. By the time I got to Sunday, I had not been able to send an email to any guest. So to give guests enough time to get on the show and give us enough time to do the show, noon on Monday just wasn't realistic. So here we are on Tuesday. And we'll be on Tuesday next week, barring some dramatic change due to weather, in fact. I'm supposed to go out of town for meetings with my off-season job. Like, depends on the perspective. This is my off-season to that, and that is my off-season to this. Anyway, I'm supposed to fly back Monday. There's an outside chance I decide to do the top 25 show Monday night, but more realistically, I may just push everything to Tuesday. But so next Tuesday we'll have a show. Thursday we'll have our normal noon show. Next Tuesday will be at noon as well. The following Thursday will be at noon as well. So that's our consistent for the next couple of weeks. The only caveat to that would be that because of another storm bearing down on at least the East Coast, whether it hits and how it hits and all that is very much to be determined. We may have to. I may just say I may not be going to the trip, which is in Texas. So I in that case, if I've got Monday available, we'll probably just push back and do the show on Monday. But already working on guests for Thursday show, already working on guests for Monday show, trying to get out ahead of some things as best we can. Just a quick note, I see a couple of questions in our live stream on YouTube. I'll get to those in a moment. Let's talk about guests for today's show. Well, we'll talk about actually interacting with us. Of course, you can go to our YouTube page and interact with us there. You can also email us, hoopsville at d3sports.com. You can tweet us at d3hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. We're on Facebook and Instagram and all that. Instagram, it's almost impossible to keep track of messages there. And Facebook, I'm available. If you want to fire something at me, go for it. We will certainly try and take your questions on and answer them the best we can. This is certainly where things start to ramp up, and there's lots of questions about stuff that's happening in 5 weeks, in literally 5 weeks. Huh. I don't know, something interesting. Apologies, got distracted with a message that's a little unrelated, but I swear I had done right. But you know how those things go. So guest today, Wesleyan men's basketball, Joe Reilly, the head coach, will join us. They just knocked off Trinity, Connecticut, ending a 20-game winning streak for the Bantams, the number 1 team, defending national champs. Wesleyan, of course, lost in the Final Four to Trinity, and they lost in the NESCAC title game last year to Trinity, so a little bit of vengeance. We'll talk to Joe Reilly about that coming up. Otterbein is having a tremendous season, breakout season, historic season, however you want to say. There's been a lot of that going on in the OAC. Remember, Muskegon earlier this year was having a tremendous season. They've hit the skids. But we'll talk to Andy Winters. No truth to the rumor we picked him because of the weather. But Andy Winters will talk to us about his Cardinals. That's back-to-back Cardinal teams. Note, if you're looking at the tote board, Wesleyan and Otterbein, back-to-back Cardinal teams. So we're definitely thinking red here today. That's why I wore blue. Yeah, it's a little confusing. Lebanon Valley women's basketball having a really good season. They're not on top of the MAC Freedom Conference currently. They got a big game with Stevens coming up that could go a long way to getting into that position. We'll talk to Julia Dugan coming up about her squad and just how well they're playing. They had 19 wins. I think that kind of snuck past a lot of people from last year. So we'll talk to her about that. And coming up, we will talk to both David Chadbourne and J.C. Christopher, Southern Maine women's coach and senior guard. Reilly Zayas had a great article about Christopher about a week and a half ago. We'll follow up on that. Talk to the two of them coming up here on the show. So with that in mind, we'll go to some of the questions we have. There's also news and notes. The American Rivers Conference, ARC, has announced that they are going to be streaming games in the tournament, men's and women's basketball tournaments, as pay-per-view. We'll get people's reactions on that. So far, reactions are not good. So we'll go to some of the news and notes that happened. Also, we've had this available to Hoopsville members at buymeacoffee.com/Hoopsville. If you're a Hoopsville member, you gained access to a live interview with the, National Committee chairs, Cam Fuller of St. Norbert, Kristen Hughes of Smith. We will have a couple of snippets from that interview. We'll talk about the idea of having dual gender hosting on the round of 16 on the men. So that's a second weekend, and whether that's even feasible to be considering and whether they will try and tackle it or not. We'll also talk to them, or you'll also hear from them about the game times for women's basketball, how the men have spread them out a little bit, why the women seemingly have not, and what the mentality is. They're open about that. We'll also talk about who might play on Friday and Saturday, how men's basketball could determine who will play in the round of 16 on Friday and who will play on Saturday, i.e. 4 and 4, since there's just 8 games. Also talk about the game times on championship weekend. Last year, our 2 title games basically taking place nearly simultaneously. We'll talk about whether there's a way to adjust those times. Granted, maybe not for this year, but for the future, but it has a little bit of impact this year. And their reactions to the NPI numbers from last year and going into this year. Would they even tweak things if they had been allowed? We'll hear from them all about that. In this moment, not that I want you to go away from this show, but Hoopsville members still have early access to that interview. We will open that interview up to the rest of D3 later today, but for now, Hoopsville members have access, including the podcast version of the show. So there you go. Lots of content. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Let's quickly go to the live stream before we get to our first contenders. And Grayson Decker, who joined us last night on the Top 25 Double Take Show. By the way, quick note, Ryan Scott, Ryan Winnable on the men's side, Scott Peterson and Reilly Zayas on the women's side. Great choices, including a couple of these names popping up in those conversations. Hoopsville members have access for that for now. That will not be released to the general public for a little while longer. So if you want to go back to the Top 25 Double Take and watch last night's show, go for it. Question on the show at 12. When we found out the bracket comes out in March, who will Lady Royals of Scranton play when they are host site for the tournament? Grayson, we don't know. That is impossible to predict. Ryan Scott did put out a mock bracket on Twitter sometime in the last day or two, or maybe it was last week. It's all kind of a blur right now. He put out his version of what he saw based on the current numbers. Those numbers and those AQs and those at-large bids are going to change 6 ways to Sunday by the time we get to the end of February. And you remember there's a 500-mile rule. They're going to try and limit flights as best they can while allowing for some flights. Scranton is one of those areas where they could fly someone in if they absolutely needed to. I don't see them necessarily using that pod as a flight location. Also, Scranton Wilkes-Barre Airport, not exactly the easiest to get to. If you're going to fly someone, say, from the West Coast or Texas or somewhere that needs to fly and get them to a pod, you'd rather have them near a more metropolitan airport, more easily accessible airport, so that the flight can work out a little bit easier. So Scranton likely will host a pod with 3 teams within 500 miles of them. You're probably going to take at least another. So let's say they're in the top 4. So imagine someone in the bottom of like a 2 seed. If you were looking at a bracket, imagine a team like a 2 seed, and then 2 teams on the lower tier of Division 3. Who they're going to play exactly? Impossible to say. Absolutely impossible to say. We could guess, but guessing between now will change with data when games are played on Wednesday. Will change data when games are played on Thursday, and all that stuff all the way through. Thoughts on Stockton versus TCNJ game tomorrow? Is Montclair going to rise in the rankings? So assuming we're talking about men's basketball, obviously that Stockton TCNJ's game is going to be important. I think TCNJ is the better team. Stockton's a good team, but they haven't really coalesced. They can't play the 40 minutes fully yet. Not that TCNJ's perfect. They are not, but I think they're a little bit better than Stockton, despite the fact that TCNJ is under a new head coach. They have played very well under that coach. TCNJ needs to win it to stay in the chase to catch Montclair. Montclair rising the polls. I don't know if they can rise any further, to be blunt. We talked about this last night on the Top 25 Double Take show because Montclair did come up in conversation. They are the lone undefeated team left. They do have one first place vote because of it, essentially. We don't know who specifically that was, or at least I haven't seen it. I can tell you from my poll, I don't know if I can raise them much higher because the NJAC, for starters, is not as I don't want to say competitive. It's certainly competitive, but it's not as stacked as it has been in years like last year where you got a bunch into the NCAA tournament. So it's not like Montclair's got a ton of challenges ahead of them that's going to prove to us they're a great team until the very end of the season. I think 3 of their last 4 are against teams that are sitting at the top of the standings with them. Then we'll get a little bit of a better answer. I don't know if they can get through the conference unscathed. I don't think anybody can get through their conference unscathed, to be completely honest. But I don't know if Montclair can get much higher. I think they're hitting the ceiling. The only exception to that is if they get through the regular season undefeated and they knock off TCNJ, Stockton, etc., then I think there's a good argument for it because they would have gotten through the conference schedule heading into the conference tournament pretty darn well. And as a result, other teams probably will have lost. Then they may raise. But for example, in my situation, I've got them in that top 5 range, but I'm not going to go much higher with them. I got amused when looking at the question, which teams would be Scranton Royals first weekend pot. I do too, Alan. Did Scranton Lady Royals want to see the Emmanuel Saints in the opening weekend? It looks like Emmanuel women are a heavy favorite to win the GNAC AQ. I don't think you want to see Emmanuel ever. I think Andy Yosinoff's one hell of a coach. Yeah, but I don't think that's a first-round matchup for Scranton, to be completely honest. I don't think Emmanuel NPI numbers are going to be that low that they would be a first-round opponent for Scranton. I think you could see Emmanuel maybe on the other side of a bracket there, and that's a second-round game potentially. Certainly, I like that one. I could see that happening. That's a good one, actually, Alan. I think Emmanuel going to Scranton's a really good choice, but I don't see that as a first-round opponent. Scranton would get a team like a winner of maybe the UEC, like a St. Mary's. Trying to think of some other conferences within 500 miles that immediately jump out at me. I'm going to go wild on you, right? Let's say Bryn Mawr wins the Centennial Conference, right? Pulls off all the upsets. They would be a Scranton first-round opponent. It's that kind of opponent Scranton would get. Women have hardly defeated St. Joe's, Maine, and St. Joe's, Connecticut Blue Jays, 2 teams that were last year's GNAC title winners, or handily have beaten them. Yep, and that's why I don't think Emmanuel will be a first-round opponent. But you're right. Too soon to know which teams go where. There you go. Alan's starting to repeat myself now. So good stuff. Keep them coming. We'll try and chat with you along the way, including on the old Twitters. If you got questions there, let us know. If you want to email us, you can certainly do that. I've got everything up and running. I am certainly ready to take your questions should you have any. I'm really just double checking to see if I missed anything, and I don't. So there you go. So we'll take a break. When we come back, Joe Reilly of Wesleyan will join us. We'll get our interviews underway. Andy Winters of Otterbein on the way after that. Julia Dugan from Lebanon Valley, and then David Chadbourne and J.C. Christopher from Southern Maine, all ahead. Plus, you'll hear from the committee chairs. It's a stacked show here on a Tuesday. You'll listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops from the WBCA studios.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit nabc.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC1927. That's nabc.com or NABC1927 on social media.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us. All of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
If I lose, I'll respond with respect.
If I win, I'll back it up with humility.
If I fail, I'll rise up with honor. It's tough for us to put it all on the line.
Don't undo my hard work with poor sportsmanship.
Respect. It's the name of the game.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
I used to never really talk, ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Getting my last second tweet together. I was just telling our upcoming guest, Joe Reilly, and I've told this to others. I have got to get myself some kind of producer or something just to do some of the behind the scenes stuff while I can focus on other things. But I've said that for years. We're in our 23rd year of producing this show, and I would say for at least half of that, I've thought that. We had Chris Tower, producer extraordinaire, for a long time. That was helpful, but the show was not nearly as complicated as it is now. Not that Chris didn't do yeoman's work getting phone calls set up of interview guests and all that, but It's a different age and time nowadays. Got questions for us? Tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville, email us hoopsville at d3sports.com, etc. We'll certainly look forward to hearing from you. You can also join us in the chat room. Alan is Dice Canton, who's how we know him, is patrolling in there, helping answer questions. Hopefully we've answered some of the questions that guests have had already. Last year, Wesleyan Cardinals got all the way to the Final Four weekend in Fort Wayne. And in a weird twist in Fort Wayne, we saw both semifinals feature conference games. It was WashU versus NYU in one game. It was Trinity versus Wesleyan in the other. Unfortunately, Trinity, for Wesleyan's fans, Trinity won the semifinal. They had also won the NESCAC title game as the 2 seed over the high-flying Cardinals. I have a feeling the date earlier, or this weekend, I should say, had been circled on Wesleyan's calendar for some time. They got some vengeance, as it were, getting the win over the Wesleyan Cardinals. I'm sorry, the Trinity Bantams. I'll get it right. Apparently, I haven't had enough coffee. To knock off the number 1 team and 29-game winning streak and defending national champs to help secure themselves at the top of the NESCAC race. Joining us to talk all about it is Joe Reilly, head coach of the Wesleyan Cardinals. Joe, as always, it is good to see you. Amazing win this weekend. And as I said, I have a feeling you guys had that date circled.
Yeah, it was a great win. I'm really proud of the guys, and it's quite a rivalry. We've been playing, competing against Trinity since the early 1900s, and it's we're less than 20 miles apart, and with the history of last year, and we've, really in the last decade, we've just had a lot of great classic games against them. So it was, it was definitely fun. We understood it was a big game, but we also said, hey, it's only one of the 24 we're playing. So, but it was, it felt good to get that win against an amazing team, really well-coached team. And they're tough. And, the plan is to hopefully see them again.
Right. Yes, exactly. You want to see him in the tournament because for those who don't pay attention, not part of the double round robin that Wesleyan plays among the little 3, and there is no double round robin in the conference. So I'll get back to that in a minute, but touch on something you said there. Yeah, it's just one of 24 you're playing. However, it is for the conference standings. And so that game does have a little bit of extra importance to it because you get a win over Trinity, you two are tied, there's a tiebreak. Like there's some reasons there that makes that one important.
Yeah, there's with the single round robin, every game in your mind feels like 2 because a lot of tiebreakers, and we're only halfway done with the 10-game round robin, so we still have a lot of work to do. We have a huge game coming up this weekend, 2 huge games. I'm always into the next game. The next game we're at Tufts, then we're at Connecticut College, but there's a lot to be done still in the conference, and as I tell my team, you can't predict where it's going to be. It always comes down to the last game on the last weekend.
And literally, that has been an example of it with you guys. I'll get to what's coming up ahead. I want to go back to something you said that I find fascinating, and we've talked about it before. Trinity is obviously your closest opponent, essentially, especially in NESCAC play. They're right down the road from you. But interestingly, your true rival, your little 3, it was with Amherst and Williams. I think a lot of people don't appreciate that there is that rivalry with Trinity based on location and now obviously success. So you almost have another layer of rivalry to this. Is it different to get up for that versus the little 3 and whatnot?
It's speaking. I'm a Trinity graduate. I know you know that, but just to bring it up, so I've lived the rivalry from looking down at Middletown, Connecticut from Hartford, Connecticut. And
looking down at. Interesting, Joe.
Yeah.
Interesting turn of phrase. But go ahead and continue.
We're talking north and south.
I know you are.
We're talking directional. They're for the north, we're to the south. And, it's the rivalry we have with the little 3 is super special and intense. We play them, even though it's a single round robin, we play them twice every year. And no matter what the records are, those games are just absolute great battles. And it's really fun for our players to be a part of that true rivalry. But with the proximity of Trinity and just the long-standing history of how many times we've played, that's a big rival. And I know from my perspective, when I was at Trinity, many years ago, it was the biggest game on our schedule, and for now at Wesleyan, we will say that it's one of the 5 biggest games of the year for us, because we have to take a lot of pride in the little 3. We give out a little, we crown a champion every year amongst the rivalries of Amherst, Williams, and Wesleyan. So it's a lot of fun, and it makes it better to be a student athlete at Wesleyan, because those rival games are great.
Yeah, it's interesting how that plays out. Like Gettysburg McDaniel's a bit of a rivalry, but Gettysburg Hopkins has also become a rivalry. Scranton Goucher Catholic Goucher back in the heyday. I'm dating myself, was a rivalry, but really it's Scranton Catholic too. Like you do have these kind of dual role rivalries. As you mentioned, you get the big one. You're actually in a really interesting stretch here of games. You had a non-conference against Yeshiva. Then you played Hamilton, who's just, to be honest, not having a great season, get the win there. But then it tips off this kind of run and NESCAC play that is really important. You play Amherst in the conference game on the other end of the little 3 double round robin, beat them by 5. You play Trinity, beat them by 2, both games at home. Now you'll travel to Tufts coming up this weekend and Conn College. As we know, Tufts lost the first 2 games of the season, won the next 16 straight. Conn College is no slouch. They're 14-5, 2-3 in conference play. Then you get Bates, who has come out of the woodworks a little bit up there in Lewiston. They're 14-4, 2-2 in conference play. Then you get Bowdoin and Colby as you finish off the main grouping, and Bowdoin's 11-6. Colby's 13-5. Like after that Yeshiva Hamilton grouping, you now have this really tough run to get through the end of the regular season before conference play. And this game with Tufts is huge. I know it goes game by game, but how do you get the guys kind of mentally focused on understanding it's not only about this game, because every game moving forward is going to have a lot of implications?
Yeah, yesterday we had a spirited practice. We took the day off on Sunday, came back, and I made them well aware that that one win in the win column against Trinity doesn't count any more than a win that we could get against any of the remaining opponents or anyone we beat already. So it is game to game. We've had a crazy schedule this season. We were on the road 11 of our first 15 games, and had some really tough challenges. We had a tough overtime loss at the College of New Jersey. It was we were on the road at a neutral site, played Roanoke and Gettysburg, and that was the second weekend. So we really wanted to test ourselves early on the road we lost 2 games in November, and we only lost 2 games the entire season last year. So me as a coach and the leader of the program, I wanted to really challenge ourselves and not just stack some easier wins. We had to play some really good teams early to get in the win column, and I'm hoping that's gonna pay off this weekend. And Tufts is very good. They're really well coached, and Connecticut colleges too. And we're anticipating that they're both having such great seasons that the fans will come out for the games, and it'll be fun. The environment we had in our home gym on Saturday afternoon against Trinity was as good. I mean, it felt like it was just as crowded as when we hosted the NESCAC finals last year. It was great.
Yeah, everything I saw certainly looked amazing to watch if you were on site. Joe, not to dwell on the negative, but to be honest, when looking at your schedule, the losses are the ones that jump out and are more head-scratching than some of the wins. As you mentioned, TCNJ, we just got done talking about, they're a good team, and that's the second game of the season for all of you. Overtime loss at their place. I think it was game 4 for them. They obviously started strong under Elberg this season. Then you lose to Farmingdale State, who's a good team, but not one I would have predicted you guys would have stumbled. It was a 2-point loss, tight. Then another overtime game against really kind of a average Nichols team who's now 11-8. That's a double overtime loss by 3. And then get to the new year in Amherst on the non-conference first round side of the little 3 rivalry, beat you all by 9. The other ones all within a possession. Amherst not so. Those games seem odd to me. They're close. What was your all reactions to those games even now?
Well, I think that it was a good learning opportunity. Early in the year, we were really searching for our identity. Like I think that every season that you go into as a coach, it's there are new challenges, and losing Nicky Johnson, who I think you could argue was the best point guard in the country, certainly on a short list, and All-American Shane Regan, who's just an awesome player and one of the best human beings I've ever coached. And he's still playing right now, helping out University of Chicago. But we lost those guys, and like our roles were so defined last year, and those were definitely the two leaders on and off the court. So I think, and getting dinged in two very close games in the first 3 weekends of the season, I think that we ended up really learning from that, and then the other two losses later, I mean, I think those sting a little bit more. I have to give a lot of credit to Amherst. I mean, Marlon's doing a great job with this group, and they were fired up. We got into deficit pretty early in that game and really got outplayed. But I think that if you're learning from the losses, they can really help you out. And I feel like we still have some room to grow here as a team, but roles are more defined. So it's fun to see that happening. So, but I agree. There were a couple stinkers in there. You can't play at your best all the time, and you can't you can't overreact to them. You gotta learn and move on.
Your group's got an interesting mix. You talk about the guys you lost, but you've got a mix of sophomores and seniors for the most part. No disrespect to Ben Little's a junior, who are kind of the leading group. Jalen Watson scoring 5+ points a game as a freshman. But it's Zach Wolinski is a sophomore at 16.7, and Sam Pullman is a senior at 13.3. Oscar Edelman is a sophomore at 10.7. Fritz Hauser is a senior at 8.2, and so on and so forth. This is an interesting dynamic, and is that part of it? It's kind of this sophomore group who certainly was with the team last year but didn't have as large a role, starting to get comfortable within their roles, while at the same time the seniors are kind of getting comfortable with understanding this is new crop that they're kind of gelling with.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we have great seniors, and we have 5 seniors, and they're all really impacting winning in their own ways. And great teams that you're not just looking for one or two players to kind of sacrifice maybe their scoring or their minutes. If everybody's sacrificing, and if everybody buys into the common goal of winning, and we've been lucky to have that for quite some time now within our program. But yeah, it's one thing to be on the bench and watch Nicky Johnson and Shane Regan take over games at the end of the game, and so they make things look easy, even the leadership in the locker room. But when it's your voice and it's the ball's in your hands, it's sometimes there's some growing pains that come along with it. But the group has been really good, and we do have a strong junior class as well, and they haven't been scoring as much as I think they're capable of, but they're doing so many other things, and it's fun to just see guys bond together. And again, the stats get thrown out the window the further the season goes, and it just becomes about winning.
Nicky Johnson, again, on your coaching staff, that certainly is helpful. Listen, let's go back a little bit to last year, because obviously, in some ways, it's probably feeding the beast, as it were. 30-2, 17-game improvement in the win column, 10-game improvement in the loss column. The only 2 losses, unfortunately, are to Trinity. In that NESCAC title game by 8, and in that Final Four game by 4. Obviously, that feeds the game against Trinity, right? Like, we understand that kind of feeds that beast. But you also had that magical a season, and we're that close, maybe not to perfection, but to doing something even bigger than you're already doing. It is tough to not assume you can just pick up the basketball, tie the laces, and get back to it this year and do the same darn thing. What was the work like in the offseason to feed off of that, use it, but also have the understanding it's going to be harder this time around?
Yeah, I have to give a lot of credit to Trinity. I mean, Trinity had a magical year 2 years ago. They they went to the Final Four and lost in the semifinals, had a magical year, won 30 games. And I'm really impressed that, James Cosgrove got them going last year, and they had a couple setbacks early, but obviously got back to the Final Four and won it. And and I bumped into Coach Cosgrove on the recruiting trail this summer and chatted with him a little bit. We both acknowledged that I think we're both making each other better. I think that I've been a head NESCAC coach for, this is my 29th year, and I've seen Williams win I've seen their teams that have won a national championship and made the Final Four. I've seen, Coach Hickson's team won it twice and numerous trips to the Final Four. Jeff Brown at Middlebury got to the Final Four. There was a bit of a drought in the NESCAC, and I think that Trinity making that great run, I think really helped our conference and got back. And now the three teams in 2 years have been in the Final Four. So I think we're all helping each other out, and it is a huge rivalry, but there's a lot of respect there amongst all of our coaches, and so I'm gonna have to give Trinity some credit. I mean, they did it back to back, and we talk about that, and it's a lot of times like staying on top is more challenging than actually getting to the top. So yeah, we got our work cut out for us. I mean, this season we already got we had a couple setbacks that we wish we could have back. So the margins are really thin for us if we want to make this a magical year, and so we have to have a strong finish.
What's the atmosphere been like on campus? Because Wesley, as you and I have discussed on a number of occasions, Wesleyan Athletics has steadily tried to get from an average athletics department to an overall, like, successful, championship-driven programs that will feed the campus atmosphere, will feed the Middletown town with excitement, et cetera. And we're seeing that, right, with football and with men's basketball. The soccer programs have become relevant. The lacrosse programs have become relevant. Final Four is significant. That's a huge step forward. What's been the reaction like on campus? We obviously saw everybody show up for the Trinity game, but what's it like the rest of the year, and what's it like within the department with all the other programs to boot?
Well, it's been great. I think that a lot of the credit goes to our athletic director, Mike Whalen, he was the head football coach at Williams. He's a Wesleyan grad, and when he arrived, it's probably 15 years ago now. He was a football coach. Then he got elevated to our athletic director, and he's done a great job. We still enjoy the moments when alumni come back and they'll see our gym standing room only and sold out games, and the football field just packed, and people are like, am I in the right place? Is this Wesleyan? Because this is not what we saw 25 years ago. But there's a lot of excitement. Our fall teams had as much success as they've ever had. Field hockey was in the NCAA tournament, both soccer programs, football, back-to-back NESCAC champions. So there's a lot of buzz. The season that we had last year, for me, the most enjoyable part for me, outside of seeing my players really get to live that amazing journey, it was how it brought the community together, and how the students in the greater Middletown community and the alumni base really rallied around us, and it was fun. It's really enjoyable for me to know that we play a small part in keeping people connected and having something for people to rally around. That was really, really enjoyable for me.
You talk about being a Trinity grad, and you've been at Wesley now in your 18th season, which is just amazing to me. It doesn't feel like 18 seasons. And I'm kind of curious, what's the secret? Looking at dates and figuring things out, I believe O'Rourke's Diner was open, so maybe it was the steamed hamburgers that has kept you in town. Of course, O'Rourke's is now unfortunately closed. I never got a chance to enjoy those. What is it? Is it the hamburgers? What is it about Wesleyan and Middletown that has kept you there?
Well, it's an amazing community. And it's an amazing school. I think that in the recruiting process, that what I love about Wesleyan is that it's a place that you can be authentically yourself. And I have a great group of guys that are from a lot of different backgrounds. We have, Jalen Watson from Kansas. We have Jack Williamson from California. We have Jackson Cormier from Houston, Texas. We have guys from Jersey, New York. Not a lot of New England guys, but a handful of New England guys. And they're all different with different aspirations, but the common thread of basketball brings us together, and we have a lot of fun. And our student athletes, after the game at Trinity, someone made a point. It's like it's fun to be at an event and have your peers supporting you, and you recognize a lot of the faces in the crowd, and you're building friendships with people in the community. So it's a lot of fun. O'Rourke's has a lot to do with O'Rourke's Diner's closed, but Brian O'Rourke was in my office about a week ago checking in. So he's still bringing the good vibes to Wesleyan.
Awesome. Tell him to open the place back up just so I can get there for a burger. That's all. He can close it after. I'm good.
Love it.
Hey, Joe, appreciate the time. Congratulations again. We had you on a number of years ago because it was like, hey, I want to commemorate my dad, but it's now become this. You guys have a program that deserves to be here and deserves to get that national attention. You're back in the top 25. And I have a feeling, obviously, this story is not done being written. A lot of work ahead, as you know. But as we always say, we give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those tuned in?
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for the invitation to join the show, and I'd like to thank you for all you do to advocate for Division III basketball and Division III athletics. And as a coach of these Division III athletes, it's I think we're the last frontier. I'm coaching guys for 4 years and building relationships, and there's been a lot of changes, but I think we're holding steadfast here at Division III, and I think it's more important than ever. So I just really appreciate all the work that you do, and it's fun to showcase it because it is a great product, and I mean great student athletes, great coaches, and great rivalries. It's just I'm really blessed to be doing what I'm doing, and I'm really thankful that you help promote this great product.
Joe, you said it perfectly there. It is probably the last frontier. Well said. Thanks for the time. It's because of you, people like you, that lets us keep doing this. You take care of yourself. We'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Love it. Thanks.
Joe Reilly joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline. Again, big games ahead. They got Tufts coming up. Tufts on that 16-game winning streak, as I mentioned. Con College after that. It's a tough little weekend. Not bad on travel. We'll see how weather, though, maybe plays a factor. We didn't even talk about how it played a factor last weekend. We'll get to that at the end of the show. Then they got 3 at home to finish it off. All the main teams have to come down. Bates, Bowdoin, and Colby. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll keep up the Cardinal theme. We'll head to Ohio and talk to the Cardinals of Otterbein, who are having a great season in the OAC. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by DIII Hoops from the WBCA studios. Back with more after this.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com. The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues,
while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC 1927. That's NABC.com or NABC 1927 on social media.
Responsibility is being accountable for your words and actions, first and foremost. It also is an obligation to be a positive influence in the communities around you. Being in a D3 program, you're going to have lots of different opportunities. You're not just an athlete, you're also involved in student life. Your academics are extremely important. We give a lot of our student athletes responsibilities right from the start by giving them leadership opportunities, by having them engage in the community, be a positive influence. That's being a responsible person.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% will go pro. That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
There we go. Got the audio back. Sorry for the delay there. Trying to get a tweet out the door. I hear our dog losing his mind, which means somebody must be ready to take him out or he wants to go out, despite it being snowy. He likes playing in the snow, but it's a long story. Complains about it, too. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us at hoopsville@d3sports.com. Dice Canton sitting in there saying, as for Stockton TCNJ, it's not a D3 DataCast picks game of the week, so I'll have to check their score predictions tomorrow to see if the game is worth checking out. Well, I think it's an important game, especially in the NJAC. New Jersey D3 fans will be watching Stockton, but as a neutral fan, I have no rooting interest in the match. Well, certainly you don't, Dice, but I think it's a good match. It'll be true also to help us understand a little bit of the NJAC race with Montclair as well. You can join us on that live stream. Chat away there. You can tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com. Inadvertently, we'll keep up with the Cardinal theme here. Wesleyan Cardinals to Otterbein Cardinals. Their mascots aren't similar, but slightly similar. It's a little weird. It's the head that I find fascinating on those Cardinals. Otterbein is having a tremendous season. They've only lost 2 games. They came on back-to-back games, I should say, about 10 days apart surrounding Thanksgiving, to Denison by 4. And Denison's season is not bad, 11-6. And then by 8 to once undefeated Mount Union, now maybe reeling Purple Raiders. And now the OAC standings are a bit of a mess. Otterbein's on top at 7-1 in conference play. Mount Union a game back. Ohio Northern a game back of that. Heidelberg a game back of that. And Muskegum, who we've all loved, is at 4-5 in conference play with everybody. 11 wins or better. And coming up for Otterbein is Baldwin-Wallace, then Mount Union, and then Marietta. Lots changed in the conference. We've talked in the conference quite a bit, but there always seems to be more to talk about. Joining us on the Hoopsville hotline to talk more about it is Andy Winters, head coach of the Otterbein men's basketball program. Andy, good to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you, Dave, for having us.
No intent to have Cardinals or someone whose last name fit the weather that we're having. You were telling me, though, just before we went on air, you guys got hit pretty hard.
Yeah, we're sitting with about 12 inches right now, and we were in a level 3 for the first time since the blizzard in the 70s. So it was a fight to figure out how to practice, but we got it in yesterday, and looking forward to a game versus B-Dub on Wednesday.
What does level 3 mean?
Essential personnel only on the road. So they thankfully dropped it to a level 2 yesterday afternoon, and some people could get out. But yeah, we got about the third most snow that Columbus has seen in its history.
That's incredible, considering that's an area that I would just kind of assume knows how to deal with that kind of stuff. We won't talk about the fact that one year I drove around picking people up from my TV station in my Pontiac Grand Prix, and it was a snow emergency. Maybe it shouldn't have been on the road. We may have. Nope, there's Andy. Andy's just popped back for it. I was about to say, I thought we lost him there for a second, but he's there. Well, it's good to see that you guys are at least rolling along. You're into the top 25 here, Andy, at 21. Let me double check something real quick on that before I lose my mind, because I've been losing my mind all day long. Sorry, thought I had this up. Yeah, you were 24 last week. That's what I was looking for. This OAC's been fascinating. First off, obviously, you lose John Carroll out of the conference. Then you have coaching changes. Marietta's head coach jumps into the MIAA, and now they're under a new head coach. Mount Union looks like they're dominating. Now they've lost 2 in a row to Heidelberg and Ohio Northern. And I'll start there. You've got them coming up this week. There's probably a small part of you that is like, no. No one needed to beat them now. We don't need them refocused for our game.
Yeah. I think about that with every conference game. As you know, I mean, if you look at the history of the Ohio Athletic Conference, we've had multiple Final Four teams in the last handful of years. And so, like Otterbein and Mount Union and Ohio Northern being at the top, I think anybody can really beat anybody right now. And so our focus is on B-Dub. They're coming off a couple good wins, but yeah, Mount Union's dropped a couple. I know Coach Foulon will get them focused and ready for this week.
Yeah, 10-game winning streak for yourselves. Ball and Wallace at 6-12, 3-6. Kind of a little bit of a struggle there for the Yellow Jackets, but it doesn't mean they're not ones to watch out for. They're going to pick up their wins, as Ohio Wesleyan found out, losing by 11 to them in non-conference play. But again, Muskegon came out of the gate looking really good this season, and have hit the struggle bus, losing 4 of their last 5 and 5 of their last 7. Mount Union has lost 2 in a row, as you mentioned. Ohio Northern has actually gotten rolling here, having won 5 of their last 6. This conference, as you point out, has produced a lot of good teams, but it feels this year especially to maybe be a little bit more chaotic, more, forgive me, wacky.
Yeah. I think, it's always been a league where, there's not a gimme game. And I think a lot of conferences say that, but, I think this is definitely a year where, with John Carroll leaving, the amount of coaching changes, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the COVID year when, there was just uncertainty. And we always talk to our guys kind of with uncertainty. It's can you come out of a pre-COVID, post-COVID, a team where you're kind of headed in the right track, and with some chaos, you can regroup and kind of find your identity. And so I think this is a year where multiple teams in our league can beat each other. Multiple teams in our league can win the conference. And in years past, it may be, you were a little bit top heavy on who could actually win the league and make a run. And so that's what's exciting, especially for us. As 7th year as a staff coming into it, this has kind of been our goal for a while, is to try to get back to the top 3 of the league, where it's been for so long, with Coach Reynolds and Otterbein, is a historically very successful program. And so our goal was just to get back there.
Was the expectation this year to be in this spot? Like when you guys came in, you're building off of 14-12 last year. So you're already a win better than last season, 17-9 the year before that. You've been this kind of 14-17 win program since COVID. Was expectations to be this good this year, to not have as many losses as you've had at this juncture? Or are you guys even a little bit surprised at how well this is working out?
Yeah. I will say this. I would say this was a year where, some years you kind of know what your ceiling is. We think we're about that good. I think this was a year where we didn't know our ceiling and we didn't know our basement. We didn't know how good we could be or what our struggles were going to be because, in the last 3 or 4 years, we've got to 17 wins, has had some success and had some really good players graduate. And we have a group of guys this year that are kind of stepping into roles they haven't had in the past. And so obviously prepared because they've retained in our program. They stayed and they fought for positions. And it's been nice to kind of see, a balanced attack from our team this year where we have younger guys and older guys. We probably have 7 to 8 guys that could be starting that are producing. And I think that's maybe where the strength of our program comes in this year is, I think we're harder to scout. I think our practices are more balanced. We've got more guys in our depth that can do multiple things. And I think that's kind of helped us take another step this year. But yes, surprising to some extent. We knew we had, certain players that could do it. And then it's just them stepping into those roles and making plays, when we need to.
Interesting. I think that came through on the broadcast. It didn't come through on my computer. At the very end, Andy, don't worry about it. We're good. But that was strange. I'm looking at you on my screen on the computer, frozen, but I'm looking at the broadcast, and you're great. That is the wildest thing. Hey, if you can still hear me, unsure if you can, but there you are. We want to talk a little bit about the senior class because they're kind of leading the way right now. You got a host of seniors. Counting Redshirt and Jarius Jones, you have 7 of them. And it's Heckman and Jones who are 2 of those senior group who are getting it done. 13.8, 11.4 points per game, both averaging 4+ rebounds, almost 5. Of course, Heckman hands out assists like they're candy and grabs steals like he's stealing it back. Tell me about that senior group a little bit. Oh, actually, Andy, can you hear us?
Yeah, no, I can. I'm sorry. I might flip over to my phone. I don't know if it's on my end or not.
Why don't you do this? Keep the connection. Get the phone one running. Just make sure it's horizontal for me if you don't mind.
Yep.
And then when I see you pop up, I'll transition the thing on our system. But if you can hear the question or answer the question while you're doing it, just tell me about the senior class. Heckman and Jones obviously leading the way with points, but what's the rest of this group like? You've got a host of them.
Yeah, I think what's nice is Julian's played for 4 years, and we've had an All-American transfer that was in front of him that he started with. We've had a 4-time All-Conference player as well graduate, and so now kind of seeing him take over as a senior into that role, he does so much for us. I mean, he's our best defender. He leads us in assists. Averages 5 rebounds. And he also scores 14 a game. And so he's really taken that next step into being the guy that leads our team and doing a lot of, we always say if your best player can be your toughest player, you got a chance to be really good. And he's done that for us. And then Jarius Jones off the bench, I think a lot of teams would say he's the starter, and he very much is in our world. We start 2 freshmen and we bring 3 seniors off the bench. And I think that gives us a good balance. And Jarius has stepped into that role, and he's probably one of the few guys that plays under 20 minutes that averages, 11+ points, and 5 rebounds. So it's nice to have the senior leaders. It's nice to have the balance of bringing some seniors off the bench, and they bought into that role of kind of whatever they need to do to be successful.
Yeah, it's the underclassmen that then play an important role with this, right? Because Micah Germany is a sophomore, and he's averaging nearly 10 points a game. Dominic Theodo, I hope I said that right, is a freshman at nearly 10 points a game. And Chase Garrido, as a junior is averaging 9+ points a game. And I don't want to forget another senior in Troy Scoutin, but it ruins the question. So what this underclassmen group's also feeling very comfortable, but I'm curious with that dynamic, and tell me a little bit about those underclassmen as well. Does there have a feeling of take advantage of this opportunity now? We don't know what future seasons could look like.
Yeah, I think each year, each team is different, and I think their identity and what roles they're playing. I know that our freshmen that are currently contributing know how much they're impacting the team, but it's not possible without a lot of the selflessness of the upperclassmen that are putting them in positions to grow and play at the same time, where that doesn't happen very much. And so, yeah, it's the younger guys kind of understanding that this is a special team and a special year and a very selfless group. I mean, if you look at, our statistics and, rebounding, assists, and our defensive numbers are kind of what stick out to me. And I think that explains a lot about how this group is willing to do whatever it takes to win. And you can only do that when you have seniors that buy into that role. And so it allows our younger guys to be who they are, play their role well, knowing that they have a lot of experience from these older guys.
I can't believe you've been there. I think this is your 8th season.
Seventh,
spectacular that you've been there that long. It doesn't feel that long, but you got obviously a lot of experience when you were at Capital, and got an interim role when Damon Goodman first announced his battle with leukemia. The good news is he's still patrolling the sidelines there. You got that experience, and then you've capitalized on it, no pun intended, apologies, to become the head coach here. What's this transition been like after, being under a great program at Ohio Wesleyan and well, we don't need to talk about Mike. We don't need to lean on Mike that hard. But, you get that experience, you get the Capital experience, and now you're coaching your own team at Otterbein. What's that trajectory been like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm coming from two of the most, successful programs in Ohio, Capital and Ohio Wesleyan in a lot of ways in the last, 10, 15, 20 years, and two experienced coaches, that I've been able to learn from and take what, I loved about their programs and things that I would do differently. And when I got the job when I was 28, I think at Otterbein, it was, you think you're prepared, but you really got to go through some learning and some growth there. And hiring the staff around me probably was the most important thing in that transition, and leaning on Coach DeWitt. Him and I have conversations weekly. But having a staff that's also been with me for 7 years, and guys that you can trust to rebuild a program, to get it back to where we believe it can be. I think that was so much of the part of it, is that there's a lot of guys that see your vision, trust your vision, as the head coach, and then help you, reach kind of where we're at today. So I would say, my experiences have helped get us to this point, and then having great staff around me's helped us, thus far in this season.
Interesting enough, your staff includes your brother, Matt Winters, older brother, I should point out. He did not get the memo, by the way. He graduated from Old Dominion, Dominican, apologies. He didn't understand D3 is where it's at. Yes. Though you did spend a year after Ohio Wesleyan in the coaching ranks at Old Dominican, right?
At Ohio Dominican, yes.
Yeah, Ohio Dominican. I'm saying old because when I'm reading it, it looks like Old Dominion, and it's really I need more coffee. Or new glasses, whichever the case is. What is it about Ohio Dominican, though, for you two that's been so instrumental? Because I find that fact interesting, because you didn't go there because he was there. He was already gone at that point. But what is it about that institution that has been so integral for the two of you?
Yeah, Ohio Dominican was actually the coach that got the job at the time. Dan Evans is a Division III guy as well. He coached under Coach Tharp for a long time before he was at Hillsdale, and Dan's now at North Georgia being successful. And so I got there, and he really treated it like a Division III program, and how we did a lot of things. And so that was great for me, because that's all I know. That's who I am. I'm a Division III guy to heart. And so, being at Ohio Dominican and kind of seeing the Division II level and the scholarship level, more so pushed me back to Division III, showed me the importance of how much this level, well, one, how good it can be, but two, how much you can just impact kids' lives. And I think you can do that at that level. It's just, this is the true love of the game, the true student athlete experience. And that's who I am, and that's what I'm about. And so, thankfully, with Dan Evans being a Division III guy, I kind of got to experience that as well in my first year at Ohio Dominican.
Fascinating. By the way, that school located right off the runway at Columbus International Airport, just wild to me. And as a plane fan, I'd probably get too distracted watching landings and takeoffs. By the way, again, mention your brother. He's the associate head coach. You must be enjoying the fact you get to boss your older brother around.
Yeah. Yeah, he was at Ohio Northern when I was at Capital at the time. And thankfully it worked out where, this was, opening that we felt like we could be successful. And then, to coach with your brothers, honestly, a dream come true. People talk about, how did you guys fight, or do you get in arguments? We're very different in a lot of ways. But having somebody, as a first year head coach that you can lean on, and really tell you what you need to hear many times, has, I think, been instrumental into my growth. And then him being here for 7 years, we joke a lot about, really living in the moment, because who knows how much longer that could go for. But to enjoy being around each other, and our parents get to come to one game, which is nice.
It's true. They don't have to worry about the schedule. I know that from other perspectives. Oh, great. My daughter's got this event. My son. Oh, right. Okay. Before I let you go, obviously there's a lot of season left. You've got 8 games, I think. You're flipping to the other side of the schedule. Obviously Mount Union's ahead, but so is the rest of the conference. It feels like, though, for the next evolutionary phase of this program, it's to not only get to the tournament. It's to win in the tournament, whether it's one game or the whole thing. That feels like the next evolution. Is that a fair assessment? And how do you get this team ready to do that with the understanding that you still got 8 games left?
Yeah, I think just thinking of how we got here, I think our guys have continued to been selfless and work really, really hard. And with 4 weeks left in the season, I mean, I think a lot of people would probably, taper down their practices or kind of cut some things that we feel like are, why we're in this position. And so I think as long as we can, continue to kind of have a chip on our shoulders and commit to the standard of what got us here, take it one day at a time, I think we have a chance, to maybe take that next step and control what we can control. And if shots are falling, so be it. But I love this team. I think they have the right mindset. I think they're capable of doing a lot this season.
Well, Andy, I appreciate your time and joining us. Give us some insight in the 15, 20 minutes that we had. Obviously a great season ahead, or it has been, and I know you're going to try and cap it off ahead. Obviously big games, and at home. More importantly, we should point out, Baldwin Wallace and Mount Union games will be at home. You actually have being the other side of the schedule, 4-4 and home and away. We have a tradition on the show. We always give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
I just appreciate what you do, Dave. I appreciate the promotion of D3 Hoops, Ryan Whitnable, Bob Quillman, QCast, the Snyder brothers. I mean, I just think the importance of getting the D3 word out there and how good of a product that we have, especially and as a coach bragging about the OAC in Region 7. I think it's one of the best regions in the country, and you guys help us promote it. So I'm just grateful for all you do. Thank you for helping us continue to get the word out. We just are overall thankful that you take a lot of time and effort to help with D3 Hoops. So thank you, Dave.
Well, thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. As I always say, coaches and guests like yourself willing to come on the show certainly help us continue those efforts. And yeah, it's grown a lot since I got started and since you were playing as well. Andy, take care of yourself. Good luck the rest of the way. Good luck digging out of this one. Hopefully the next storm doesn't bother you too much, and we'll look forward to catching you later.
Thanks, Dave.
Andy Winters joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline. Great to chat with him. Great perspective on the Cardinals of Otterbein. That OAC race is wild. Just I am more fascinated every day I log in to watch a game, but big ones coming up, including early next week against Mount Union to wrap up the month of January. How are we wrapping up the month of January already? We'll take a break. When we come back, we will head into Pennsylvania. Lebanon Valley. It's Lebanon Valley. Will join us to talk women's basketball with their head coach, Julia Dugan. And still ahead after that, Southern Maine will have their coach and their star senior on the show. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA studios.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all. It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Comprehensive learning is being able to adapt to experiences and apply the things that I learned. Being an athlete and juggling academics helped me grow as a person, and things that I've learned, I was able to apply it in another field, putting them into everyday life. Developing comprehensive learning helped me prioritize certain things to make sure I get to where I want to be.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else, and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go on a personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
We are calling you, all of you. We are calling all Division III schools to join our cause.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
Cut that off. I lost track of time. Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Show is ticking along as we've gotten an hour down. Well, more than an hour down. Still ahead We're about to talk to Lebanon Valley women's basketball, then Southern Maine women's basketball. They seem to be following the storm inadvertently with this one, but it wasn't that hard. I think about 2/3 of Division III got nailed by that storm this past weekend. Another storm coming this coming weekend. We'll see how that impacts things. We can talk a little bit about the end of the show. A lot of schedule changes. Even the UAA is just going to compact things later on. So more storms is just more trouble for conferences trying to get conference races done and all the games in. Some teams could be really playing a lot of games by the end of the season if they're not too careful, because I have a feeling this is going to be a little bit of a trend on the East Coast. Got questions for us? Tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville, email us hoopsville at D3sports.com. Dice Canton, speaking of which, says he thinks the Brandeis teams will be back from the Midwest today, but I have to ask on Friday if the judges were forced to take a charter bus back from St. Louis. We were going to have another guest on the show today, and she said, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make it. We're still stuck in Texas, and while there may have been a window there, if their flights got changed, they might have to roll and to get back to their hometown. So a lot of this, so teams either getting stuck out at where they were or not able to get to where they were. Case in point, that's why Monday, right now I'm going to do a show on Tuesday, but it could be moved back to Monday if I don't end up making my trip to Texas next weekend. And that's partially Texas. Where I'm going in Texas wasn't badly affected. It's mainly about whether I can get out of here because of that next storm that could potentially be hitting us. I'm distracted. I'm getting off topic, but the point is weather is having a huge role throughout the division. One of those teams that's digging out a little bit and probably got something similar to me, and snow, then weirdly sleet in the teens, Lebanon Valley. And again, it's Lebanon Valley, folks. It's not Lebanon. I've been drilled into my head. It's Lebanon. They are playing very well in women's basketball, if you have not noticed. And I have a feeling you haven't. 19 wins last year. And when I looked at that, I kind of scratched my head and go, how did I miss 19 wins last year? They have steadily built since COVID, 11, 13, 15, 19. Now they're already 13-4, 4-2 in conference play. And while the MAC Freedom still gets dominated in headlines by DeSales and Stevens, Lev-Val seems to be entering the conversation, and they've got a huge game against Stevens coming up on Wednesday. Joining us to talk all about it and maybe ignore any possibility that I have jinxed things is the head coach of of Lev-Val. It is Julia Duggan. I said it wrong earlier. Apologies. Good to see you. How are the Flying Dutchmen today?
We are doing well. We're starting to warm up a little bit, get out of the snow and the ice, so that's great.
Yeah, talk about a weird storm, to say the least. You got at least the game before it against Del Val, snuck out that one by 1 at home. You guys are on a little bit of a win streak here, 2 in a row after stumbling a little bit to DeSales and surprisingly Arcadia after that. Granted, Arcadia is 11-6, but lost to DeSales in a weird game, 46-33, and Arcadia 68-57. Not that we like dwelling on the losses, but those are the ones that raise the most questions. What happened in that series of games?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of just getting back to classes, and you hate to use that as anything, but I mean, DeSales and Arcadia, both very, very well coached teams. DeSales, I think that we came out a little flat and that hurt us. The energy was a little low, and that's something that we definitely talked about after the game. So that was definitely something that we did turn around. And then the Arcadia game, we actually stumbled across another winter storm that kind of pushed the game a little bit, kind of didn't get a full warm up and everything. So we were getting shots. We were doing everything pretty well, but just nothing was falling for us. So, as we come back around to that game, hoping that, once we're back in our gym for that, and we can kind of turn that around and give us a W.
Yeah, the wins are obviously more important than the W's, and you've only had 4 losses this season. The other 2 were back in the opening 3 games of the season. You went out to Capital, lost by 12 to Wheaton, then beat Alma by 5. Then came home-ish. I don't want to say went across the street because you didn't, but went down the road, as it were, to F&M, and they got you pretty good, 72-49. That was about the time of the season where we all thought F&M was having a pretty darn good year. They've come a little unglued in conference play, But then you went on this 10-game winning streak before those two against DeSales and Arcadia. Are those DeSales to Arcadia games after a 10-game winning streak perfect in some way, because you can kind of now use that in practice to say, ladies, we got to be focused. We got to do this. We got to do that, because as we just saw, we weren't.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, I kind of use them the same as even just like the F&M game, as the first time head coach and, the first time coach here at LVC, I was kind of trying to put a spin on things and everything like that. It was already a well-established roster. So kind of putting a little bit of my spin on things, maybe from CNU when I was down there as a full-time assistant. I picked up a lot of things from Coach Broderick. Kind of want to put some of those things into my play. So stumbled a little bit in the beginning. We've had a few injuries that have really, kind of put us back a little bit. But the girls that we have right now, we kind of, I don't want to say had a come to Jesus moment after the F&M game, but I think kind of a little bit like that, where they kind of took it and ran with it. We kind of changed up what we were doing. And then you get into conference play and everybody knows you. Everyone knows the best thing that you do. So maybe stumbling a little bit in the beginning definitely showed them that we have to be able to make those adjustments, especially in-game adjustments. We can prep as much as we want, but different things are going to happen in the game. So I definitely think that they took that and we turned it around with the FDU Florham game.
This is a bit, as you said, a team that's getting used to you as a new head coach, and we'll dive into that in a little bit, but an established 4 seniors, 3 juniors, 4 sophomores, and you had a class coming in of 5 freshmen. It's kind of a nice balance in terms of that sense. Yes, you'll lose seniors, but everybody does, right? But it is that senior group that's kind of leading the way. Reilly Hudl is got the most points at 15.2 a game, 5 rebounds per contest. Then you have Kaylee Eckert. She's a senior as well. So it's those two kind of, Eckert, by the way, 13.6 points a game. Brielle Redinger, she's a senior too at 11.5. So while it's an even balance, it's your senior group who are kind of running the show, as it were.
Yeah, and I mean, they're just a well-rounded group of kids. Like, they work so hard. They're all gamers. They want to come in every day to practice and just give the best that they can. And that it does translate out onto the court for them. They're really trying to bring along some of those younger kids because they know after this year, it's going to be a little bit of a reload year for us, but not too much. Like, we do have a ton of talent on our team. A lot of kids that want to come in and work every single day. So they see that and they also want to bring them along too, also continuing their own success on the court.
What's interesting is this is a conference, as I mentioned before, and you knew this, and again, we'll get into your coaching in a bit, from coming in, that it was DeSales and Stevens. Megan at Stevens, and of course, DeSales has had the attention of everybody for the last few years just by the way they've played. It's tough to kind of emerge, especially for a Leb Val who was in the Commonwealth side. That's the other kicker of this. They were you're in your 3rd season on the Freedom side, and I say you as a program, not you as a person. You in the C2C. But Fred Richter at DeSales, they're having a little bit of an off season at 11-6, but 5-1 in conference play. Last year was a little bit of a weird season for them as well. But Megan at Stevens, it's consistently a good program. How do you tell your team, is what I'm trying to drive at here, that they can be competitive in this conference, and that Stevens and DeSales are just other programs, not something to be kind of thrown by? I would assume last year finishing on top at 12-2 in the regulars conference standings helped that, but it came to a crashing end to DeSales. So how do you break through kind of the mental block, as it were, that they can be the best team in this conference?
Yeah, I mean, we watch a ton of film. They watch a ton of film on their own. So kind of just picking apart different things, like even just going back to the DeSales game. The next day we came in and we watched everything that we did, things that we need to improve on, everything that DeSales did, and then you kind of pick apart that for hopefully the next time that you guys play. But when it really comes down to it and we really work with them, we can match up with any team. even though there might be some, maybe a size disadvantage or, a speed disadvantage or anything like that, like we can, no matter what, try and match up. You just have to find those little things that kind of set you apart. And I think that we have that, especially with this, the senior class. We have scoring from all aspects. With Reilly Hudl on the outside, really, really good shooter. She can get to the basket. And then with Bree and Kaylee, we can kind of have that high-low or even just inside-outside work. Kay can hit the 3-point shot from the outside, so that makes her a little bit of a threat out there, which pulls people, but she can also get to the basket. And their footwork and handwork is honestly amazing. So it's really great to see. So we can match up with that, but also, with our junior class, we have Abby and we have Lex who are regularly in games. Abby is a huge force for us on defense. She just loves to go after the best player on someone else's team. And Lex is also very solid for us. She goes in and we can kind of put her on, someone else and she's always in help side. Like she's really, really big with being not a role player. And I told her that you're not a role player, but she comes in and she gives us a lot, even if it doesn't always show up on the stat sheet. She brings a lot of energy and communication for us. So it's really awesome.
Again, you come in, you take over this program. You're assistant head coach at Christopher Newport. You and I could have a whole conversation about Bill. Sorry, Bill, you let her go. But it's interesting if you look at your history, as it were, and what you have been as an individual. Christopher Newport for 3 years, where you were obviously a head coach of a very good program and a funky program in terms of scheduling and understanding the dynamics of this Division III from a different angle. Prior to that, you had been at Endicott up in Mass, where you're an assistant coach, very different scenario, right? Irony being that you lost to Christopher Newport in the NCAA tournament. Seems like you're a traitor, Julia. You left for the captains. But you actually played at Ryder, where you were a part of the MAC honorees and all of that. You even spent some time playing in Germany. First off, it feels like you've maybe found a home in D3. I say that now. Maybe next year you're off to a D1 program somewhere. But what is it about all those experiences, playing in D1, playing overseas, then coaching at Endicott and coaching at Christopher Newport, that you're bringing to Lev Val and hoping to rub off on the players and maybe the department as a whole?
Well, yeah, it's nice to be able to see, what it takes to be D1. Being able to go overseas and play professionally, what that takes, but also like trying to bring that to D3, because I absolutely love the D3 model. I love the fact that you can be a student, you can have a social life, and you can be really competitive in basketball or like whatever sport you're in. So that's really what I'm trying to bring, and being able to see built success at Endicott. When I got there, we ended up winning the conference championship for the first time. So that was really awesome to see. And then going down, and I will say that we did not lose to CNU by that much. And I like to hold on to that really, really hard. But then going down to Christopher Newport and seeing a winning culture and what it takes. And even as an assistant, like how important it is to kind of be that rock and that glue for the team and helping, the head coach with all aspects of, player development off the court, and just making it easier so that he can kind of continue to run a very successful program. And I was then able to take things from him as far as what I would want when I became a head coach. So it's just really awesome to see the progression of just like my 6 years of coaching kind of take off, and being able to be in that, national championship game, even though it didn't go the way that we wanted to. It really showed, and even in that first year with them, what it takes to get there. And I so appreciate Coach Broderick for everything that he did and everything that he showed me, and even Coach Hutchinson up at Endicott, because it made me who I am, and it kind of gives me what I want to be as a head coach.
You and Bill are so polar opposite, it's not funny. I love Bill. Saw Bill at Navy earlier this season. He's a very, not stoic, but he's very mellow when the game isn't being played, and very pointed He's very realistic, etc. You are bubbly. You're effervescent. I'm going to use a big word I'm not sure I'm using properly. If I am using it, send in the donations. Let's go. buymeacoffee.com/Hoopsville. Bubbly, full of energy, positive, etc. In just my brief interaction with you, that's a great yin and yang. Where do you find that with your program, though? Because admittedly, as a player, sometimes having a lot of that's great, but if you don't have some of that criticality, you're not going to get very far.
No, that's fair. I like to have a very positive approach, especially with putting things out to the players in this generation. Like, I feel like you kind of have to, we're in the generation of Y, so there's a lot of explaining. And if you come across with not negativity, but maybe too
I hadn't thought of it
crazy.
That way. The generation of Y. Holy crud.
I constantly, like, when you're explaining things, they're like, why am I doing this? Why are we doing this? What is this going to do?
Are you
like,
in my
why?
house? No, seriously, that's an amazing perception that I haven't heard before. Maybe I just missed it. Continue. I'm sorry to interrupt. That's so on point.
And it's honestly, I come from, like, when I played, like, I was very to the point. Like, sometimes it can be very hard for me to over explain things and feel like I'm getting it across to them, but I kind of brought that in, and I feel like you have to be a little bit more positive with them in obviously certain aspects and certain times, so that they can actually grasp it or want to grasp it. But when it comes down to it, like, say that we're not bringing the energy in like the first 2 minutes of the game, I'm going to call a timeout and I'm going to get on you guys. And same thing in practice. Like, I want to try and make practice as fun as possible while still trying to learn, because if not, it becomes monotonous. They don't want to do certain things. They don't want to do drills multiple times. But if you can kind of put a little bit more of a positive spin on it, great. And then you obviously get down to the nitty-gritty of things. So I feel like having a little bit of a balance of both kind of helps, especially with this generation.
Amazing perspective. Julia, blew my mind there for a second. I'm sure someone are going to come back to me going, well, Dave, yeah, I've heard that. I hadn't. So I appreciate, I will be walking upstairs or down the hall, whatever it is, to my wife and going, oh my God. So great, Julia. By the way, we should also point out, you came in and the coaching staff, you left. Allison Skirbo had been there a year, still there. Keely Chaklos, apologies, I know I'm screwing that up, but a Leb grad of 2015 who had been hired in 2016 to be an assistant coach. They stayed. So to some degree, you had that continuality with the coaching staff and for the players. But as a coach, you don't make the decision on who you want your staff to be necessarily. That's an interesting dynamic.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think it was important, especially for the players, like, to keep them here. They really have like a great connection with them. I came in very late in the process as far as just like recruiting and everything. So Allison was the one that was doing a lot of the recruiting in between, when the last coach left and when I got hired. So she really held solid for a lot of that and being able to continue with the recruiting class that they had, and she did a great job. We're sitting pretty well with our recruiting class, so that was huge for us. And Kylie brings a perspective to the players with being an alum of what it takes to be great. She was on a very, very successful stint of a team. So for them to have that, and they have like really, really good connections with both of them, I thought was important. Just when there's too much change, it's not good for them and it's not good for the program. So to be able to continue that for them was huge.
I got to let you go at some point here, but you do have big games ahead. Stevens is next. It's a team that last year they lost to twice in the regular season before then getting knocked off by DeSales in that conference title game, which I mentioned. Didn't see him in, it wasn't conference title game. Apologies. Didn't see Stevens in the tournament is what I was trying to drive at there. Mm-hmm. Earlier, double checking. Yeah, you haven't seen him yet this season. This kind of wraps up the first half of Freedom Play before you'll start repeating it with Misericordia coming up, who's the end of that 10-game winning streak. How are you all getting ready for this game? And are you glad it's first a home game and then the road, or would you have rather had this been the road, get it out of the way, and have it be the home game next up?
I don't think that really matters to me. Obviously, catching away games is huge, but winning in your home place is really, really important. So we're doing a lot. We've been watching a ton of film. Meg does a great job with her program. We played against them when I was down at CNU, and I'm just always in awe of the schemes that they run and the players that they're able to bring in. They have such a good niche up in that, New York, North Jersey area. So they definitely pull a lot of like really, really good players. So it's fun to see and watch them on film and kind of pick that apart and see what our matchups will be and everything. So it's definitely going to be a very good game. Meg, like I said, always puts out a great team. But I'm hoping that we can find some things defensively to give us a leg up, I guess.
Well, I appreciate the time. Good luck the rest of the way. Obviously, big game coming up, but then the big flip. I mean, you still got Stevens ahead. You still got DeSales ahead. You still have the Acadia ahead before conference tournament. So there's a lot of basketball still to be played, even if we're at the end of January already. Julia, I suspect you know this from other programming and Bill being on the show and the like, but just in case, we do have a tradition on the show. We give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me is moving forward with this generation and basketball. So, thanks for having me on.
But why?
That's fair.
Just thought I'd ask. Hey, thanks for coming on. Great to chat with you. I have seen you on the sidelines. I've made my acquaintances when I've seen you on the sidelines, but good chance to finally get a chat with you. Really appreciate it. And remember, D3 is the best. Forget Okay, Towson Navy, forget I said that, okay? Forget it. I didn't say that. I still got to get paid. But thank you for the time. Good luck the rest of the way. And we'll look forward to catching up with you, I'm sure, somewhere down the road.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Julia Duggan joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline from Leb Val. Leb Val, LVC, Lebanon Valley. We didn't even ask her if she's learned how to say Lebanon Valley correctly there in Annville, Pennsylvania, but we'll catch up with her another time and double check if she's worked on it. When we come back, we'll head up to more snow country. Southern Maine's digging themselves out. We'll talk to that program. We haven't had them on in a long time, but there's good reason to have them on now. I'm actually a little surprised they haven't made the top 25. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA studios. More after this.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
For the love of the game, but for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, then I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC1927. That's NABC.com or NABC1927 on social media.
I believe sportsmanship is a mutual admiration and respect for your fellow competitors. We all go through a lot to reach the point where we compete against one another. It's important to realize that. So once we're finally on the field or on the court or on the starting block, we look at each other as fellow human beings and not just competitors. Being able to recognize the hard work that other athletes are putting in creates a more positive and inclusive environment.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
For the love of the game, but for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, then I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so
We'll cut off the ad break there, going a little long as we get ready to roll into our final guest segment. Still to come, you'll hear from the National Committee Chairs. It's clear this show is going to go long. Little snippets from the interview that currently is available for Hoopsville members. We will make it available for everybody eventually, but if you want to get an early access to it, go to buymeacoffee.com/Hoopsville, sign up for role player or higher. So go below the donation group where you can buy coffees for me, which is always nice, don't get me wrong. Go below that to the monthly memberships. That's where you'll sign up. But we'll hear from the committee chairs about the dual hosting idea, maybe for the second weekend, women's basketball game times in general for the tournament, especially the opening weekend, who the men's basketball teams may play on Friday or Saturday, how they'll determine that, championship weekend game times, how we sometimes overlap a little too much, and how they reacted to NPIs. We'll play some snippets of our segment about those topics coming up, plus my 2 cents on the idea of a dual gender second weekend, one school hosting both is what we're talking about, et cetera, et cetera. Reminder, women have priority opening week. No, men have priority opening weekend. Women have priority second weekend. Heading up, and we're following the storm up into Maine, where they got hammered by this nor'easter, Miller B type storm for you weather geeks out there. Got absolutely hammered, but it's Maine. They're digging out of it. Southern Maine Huskies are playing tremendous basketball this season, and it's in part due to a pretty good talent, as it were, in J.C. Christopher. Great article written by Reilly Zayas about a week and a half ago about JC and the Southern Maine program and how staying in the state was so important. It's eerily similar to the story of Ashley Marble, who was Southern Maine's all-time great. Didn't love the volleyball experience at D1 Orono, stayed in the state, went to play basketball at Southern Maine, and the rest, as they say, is history. Joining us to talk about the team that is back in the conversation nationally and in the Little East, is David Chadbourne, the head coach, and JC Christopher, the senior guard. Thanks, you two, for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
We'll start with just the fact that you're having a great season, David. 18-10 last year, 13-4 the year before that, 8-18 the year prior, and you're now 17-1. You're about to equal last year's mark, and we're not even done with the season. The lone loss is to Bates in overtime at that place, which I know is slightly down the road, but that was on game 4. This is a program that's absolutely clicking this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think we continue to get better, which is the key. I still think we have room for growth, obviously, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie. We've enjoyed all parts of the season, and we hope to enjoy the rest.
Hope to enjoy the rest. I like how you put that. JC, from your perspective as a senior, you've seen this grow. 8, 13, 18, potentially 20 wins this season. What's it like to be part of a program that you see struggle out as you get there, struggle as you start to become a part of the program, but then start to take these huge steps forward to return to what we remember as Southern Maine basketball?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and we have so many players on our team that just really top to bottom, everyone comes in and works really hard, puts in time on their own, and we just enjoy being around each other. And just we all care about winning and care about playing together. So that has been a lot of fun.
You got to be happy to be around one another when you're in the state of Maine, because you're either going to be on long bus trips or stuck in snowstorms. A little bit of both has played out. First and foremost, David, how has this last storm treated all of you? From what I heard, you guys got socked a little bit.
No, it's Maine.
Yeah,
it's Maine. The only negative was, because the university closed yesterday, so we didn't have a chance to practice. So that's always frustrating. But yeah, it's fine. I mean, a couple feet of snow in Maine, people just shrug it off, shovel, and get about their business.
JC's in the background going, "Oh, I got a day off. Are you kidding me? This was brilliant." Gorm, we should tell everybody, Southern Maine, just outside Portland on the western side. So you're kind of just in touch with Portland life, while just in touch with true Maine rurality life. JC, you come from this state. There's no way the way you played in high school, you didn't have, this is kind of what Reilly touched on, you didn't have the ability to go wherever you want, including leaving the state. And that was kind of what this was all about. What was it about Southern Maine that was so important with you, considering what you saw also, in fact, in front of you and what that team was at the time?
Yeah, so Maine is a really special place to me. All my family's here. I really have spent my entire life in Maine. So being close to home was really important. But like when I chose Southern Maine, it was about the people here and the program, and just coming into something that had people that were committed and competitive and just enjoyed being around each other.
Skowhegan isn't exactly, if you're in Maine, everyone knows what Skowhegan is. Everyone knows where it is. It's always had really good basketball, if I remember, David. When I look at your roster in terms of what this team is and what you have recruited, it feels like Maine is very important, partially because it's Southern Maine, obviously, as an institution, but because of the quality of talent up there too, which I know.
Absolutely. It's one of the reasons I took the job, because I felt like you could win your league, you could win nationally with Maine kids. So we focus primarily on Maine and then try to sprinkle, New England and outside around them. But Maine is our focus.
JC, from your perspective, what is it about it? Ryan Scott has finally warmed up to the idea that Maine basketball is probably as good as Indiana basketball. I certainly grew up knowing that, so I'm very biased. To everybody out there, explain what it's like to be in the throngs of basketball and then choose to stay in it to some extent. High school basketball there's unique.
Yeah, there's a really special atmosphere around Maine basketball. I'm from a small town, and we had half our town would come to the games on a Friday night in high school. And then when you get to playoffs and you're playing in like the Augusta Civic Center, it's packed every time you play, just people coming to support you. And that's translated to the college level too. We have so many people from the Gorham area that come to our games, so many people from the Skowhegan area that come to our games. So it's really special to just play in that atmosphere.
Just out of little story, like when JC came out and committed to us last year, I couldn't go anywhere. I'd be on the golf course. I'd be anywhere in the sun. Heard you got JC Christopher. Heard you. I mean, everybody. You know what I mean? Maine is basketball crazy. It's really, and everywhere I went, no matter where I went, somebody brought that up. So I realized then, I said, oh, I probably got a pretty good player.
No pressure. No pressure at all. JC, quick question. I'm going to date myself a little bit. When I was there, it was Eastern and Western Maine. Now I know I went to Northern Southern. I don't remember when that split took place. Did you say you were playing in either Augusta or Portland? You weren't on the Bangor side, right?
We were, yeah, we played in Augusta for all of our like regional games.
Okay.
We were in North, so.
Okay, so you were on that side that played in Augusta. Got it. Thanks for the reminder there. The other side's in Bangor, and then they alternate the championship sites every year. Folks, it's incredible. They take a week off in February. I thought that was normal. The tournament takes place there. I just thought that happened to be. Heel point system's how you get in. I've talked about that on Twitter before. And then the next week's the state champs, where you take one from each and they play against each other. I had to leave the state to understand, no, that's not normal. And then you get a break in April on top of that, where sometimes there's still snow on the ground. But again, JC, you got to come into a program that's kind of rebuilding. And David, to some degree, you're coming into a program that's still rebuilding, and you leave a D2 men's basketball program. I'd like to get the perspectives from both of you about that kind of decision process, because it's not like you're picking, I hate to say it, a winner, but you're also picking a program that's got a huge history where Gary Fifield, Ashley Marble, and the rest of those programs still have a huge aura over. David, what was that choice like?
That's one of the reasons I took the job, because I don't know if you could see it, but there's a banner right behind me with all the things that Coach Fifield and accomplished, and all the NCAAs and Final Fours and league championships and all that. And, I just felt like you certainly could be good here. You could be good. So that was one of the selling points to me, is the tradition. And Coach Fife's still around. So he still comes in a lot, and we still chat, and we play golf. And so it's great having him around.
I randomly ran into him at a Navy game when Maine was there a handful of years ago, and I nearly fell out of my chair, not realizing he was on the coaching staff, and he came up to me, which was amazing. JC, from your perspective, though, again, you know the history. You're in a region that you know these programs, the Bates, the Bowdens, the Southern Maines, and others there, and you choose to stay, but you choose a program that's got to rebuild. What was that, what was that decision like?
I mean, honestly, the decision was pretty easy to make. Like Coach Chadbourne and Coach Shea and all of the players on our team, just the impact that they've had in a short amount of time here, and the growth that the team had last year. That was something that really stood out to me. Just knowing that I was coming into a program that was really trending in the right direction, and we had a chance to keep building.
So now you've got this point where you have gotten it, rebuilt. As I said, one loss on the season. JC, is this what you guys expected when you looked at the schedule? You looked at the Little East, which Rhode Island College has certainly been a power with, where other programs have tried to make their emergence. Did you guys expect to be in this position where you're 17-1, 9-0 in conference play with about 7 games left to play?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we expected it, but we knew we had the potential to do it if we got better every day. And I think that's something that we like to focus on, is just one day at a time, and not look ahead too far, but just keep getting better each day.
And David, from your perspective, what was the goal? What did you think could be accomplished this year? Again, building off of last year's 18-10, 12-4 in conference play campaign.
You know, and this is going to sound like coach psychology crap, but I never put a goal. I never put a ceiling on what this team could possibly be. You know what I mean? Because you say, okay, we want to win a national championship. I mean, look, we want to be the best possible. We want to max out our ability, and whatever that means. Is that a NCAA? Is that a Final Four? Is it whatever that means? That's what we want to do.
So what is the message then to everybody in the off season, in season, et cetera, to get to that?
It's pretty much what JC said. We try to focus on a daily getting better individually and collectively. So being as competitive as we can every day in practice, and just kind of getting better and not losing sight of, hey, let's enjoy this journey. You know what I mean? Let's not just think about the end, what it could be. We want to enjoy today and tomorrow and kind of keep moving forward that way.
Not to dwell in the past, but I'm kind of curious. Last year, you get to the conference title game against UMass Dartmouth at their place.
Yep.
And to be blunt, it's an unceremonious butt kicking, 94-50. Like,
well, that's kind, actually, but okay.
Okay. I mean, they absolutely dispatched you guys. Ended the season just on a dud. They would lose in the next round barely to Trinity, Connecticut in the first round of the NCAA tournament. How much does that drive? I mean, I know it drives the offseason, but how much is it driving the team still now? And is that part and parcel for what we're seeing this season?
You know what, to be honest with you, we never talk about it. We don't. It's not relevant to what's going on right now. I mean, to be honest with you, I was extremely proud of that team last year. I felt like we talked about, I think we maxed out. I think we ran out of juice, beat Rhode Island College in the semifinals, had one day to prepare. You know what I mean? We had no legs, and Dartmouth was very good, especially at home. So no, I don't, would I've liked a better game, obviously, but I feel like we had a great year, and it helped propel us to what we're doing now.
JC, what was the reaction like from you and the team? And the same question, driving force in the offseason, but how about now?
I think we just focus on one game at a time, and we just want to compete and just fight together and stick to our identity as a team. And we believe when we do that, good things can happen.
Is there also a part I touched on a little bit of bringing back the glory of this Southern Maine? I mean, when I was in college, I'd come home for spring break. I had a friend who lived in South Paris. We would go skiing at Sunday River, and we would sit there watching Southern Maine on TV because it was the NCAA tournament. That was the aura of things. Is there something about bringing that? We touched on it, but is there an impetus to bring that pride back?
For me, absolutely. Absolutely. That was a major goal for me personally, is to get this program back to, national, acknowledgement. So, and to battle for championships every year.
And JC, I don't think we've touched on it. Reilly did. It's part of the beginning of this. You didn't have to stay either. Like you could have moved on and taken your talents, as they say, to somewhere else. We obviously get the understanding of why it's so important to Southern Maine, but you must have had some offers that made that a difficult choice.
Yeah, when I was making my decision, it was all about finding joy in the game of basketball again. I think you do lose sight of it a little bit when you're in college. Like, it becomes a grind, and you start to lose sight of the fun that you always played the game for. And so for me, I just really wanted to find a place where I knew I was going to get that joy for the game. And I came and visited, and when I walked away, I knew it was here.
Got Mass, Boston, Keene State ahead this coming weekend, weather allowed, to get that one. I mean, Keene State's got to come over the White Mountains to get to you guys. Mass Spartans just got to get out of Boston. And then you're on the road at Rhode Island College, Eastern Connecticut, then finish up with 2 or 3 at home, Plymouth State at home, Dartmouth on the road, Vermont State, Castleton at home. Big games coming up, David, at home. It's obviously going to be important, the home side of this. How do you guys prepare just this weekend alone?
Nothing different, to be honest with you. I mean, UMass Boston plays differently than anybody else in our league, so their preparation's a little different because they play 40 minutes of zone and press and do different things. And the coach there, I've known her since she played college at Franklin Pierce. I was actually the men's coach when she played for the women's team at Franklin Pierce. So I've known Heather forever and love her, and she does a great job. So yeah, we're just going to try to stay focused and look. And I mean this. As long as we're kind of locked in and we play hard, I'll take us chances against anybody, anywhere. So,
and JC, you know this is important for the team. Big games. It's game by game, I assume.
Yeah, we're just one game at a time, and we're focused on UMass Boston tomorrow. We'll get ready for them, and then, hopefully get a win.
It's kind of weird how UMaine Orono lost two really good players to Southern Maine in its history. Maybe more that I am not aware of. Really impressive with what you guys have done and where this program is. I'm biased in saying I'm glad to see it back in our national conversation. I'm a little surprised we haven't seen maybe some top 25 more love, but it doesn't matter. It's out of everybody's control, even mine. I don't vote. Big games ahead. I know you guys are marching towards it, and I appreciate all the time you gave. By the way, quick note, and it was corrected off on the side to me because I just jumbled everything in my head. We should point out, and she's pointed it out, she transferred in from Maine, and I had this whole aura in my head. She's been there for 4 years. She's not. JC.
That would have been nice, though.
Say again?
That would have been nice if she had been.
Oh, right? I know.
Yeah.
That'd been a whole different conversation.
I'd have been okay with that.
Yeah, no, whole different conversation.
Yeah.
I botched everything up in my head, and I apologize. David, before I let you go and ask his last questions quickly about the rest of this team, how have they fed off JC? How are they as a unit? Who are we not talking about?
Oh, Lucy Wiles was Rookie of the Year last year and is having a great year this year. Dakota Shipley, kid out of Brunswick, that's really good. That's, I think, the best center in our league. And then we had another transfer, Ava Ingles, who's been tremendous, does things that just helps you win games. And I think we have the best shooter in the league in Liz Cody, although statistically has not shot it as well as she did last year. But, I just named 5 kids right there, and we have depth besides that. But those 5 really drive the train.
And JC, this is better than Orono, right?
It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, I see how you did that. Well played.
She's diplomatic.
Very diplomatic. Well done. Both of you, thanks for the time. We have a tradition on the show. We give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those who may be tuning in? Dave, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to JC.
No, I appreciate it being on. I'm excited for USM, and I'm excited for the alumni and for our kids, and hopefully we can continue doing good things.
Yeah,
JC?
So we just want to keep having fun and keep working hard, getting better day by day, and see what happens.
Awesome. So well said. Thank you so much for humoring me. You guys all take care. Enjoy the weather for me. We're getting a little down here, but you're getting the stuff I enjoy the most. And if you get on the slopes, enjoy those too. Take care. Good luck the rest of the way, and we'll look forward to catching up with you somewhere down the road.
Thank you very much.
David Chadbourne, JC Christopher joining us. Yeah, botched that completely. I knew JC had transferred in, but my head got stuck around the idea that this program is built so far that I just conflated her right in there, being there all 4 years. But congratulations to that program. Back in the national conversation, Little East power. They already blew past Dartmouth earlier this season. Looking forward to seeing that rematch among the rest of Little East play. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll hear from the national committee chairs, do some news and notes, get some 2 cents in as well. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by DIII Hoops. Back with more after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC1927. That's NABC.com or NABC1927 on social media.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
If I lose, I'll respond with respect.
If I win, I'll back it up with humility.
If I fail, I'll rise up with honor. It's tough for us to put it all on the line.
Don't undo my hard work with poor sportsmanship.
Respect. It's the name of the game.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
I used to never really talk, ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Welcome back to Hoopsville. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, still kicking myself. Reilly Zayas wrote a tremendously great article about J.C. Christopher and Southern Maine, and I've read it, and I knew she transferred in from Maine Orono, but I got so wrapped up in the idea that this program has built itself, 9 wins, 8 wins, et cetera, and so used to Division III students being there for 4 years that I just conflated my information and had JC there all 4, when that's not the case. She transferred in and they covered it well. They answered it well. My brain fart on the questions was the one at play here. And so I apologize. Just completely screwed it. Hats off, Christina. She sent me a note that I was misspeaking, and I appreciate that. I really do. I don't like screwing that kind of stuff up, and clearly my brain went 6 ways to Sunday. A couple of things wrapping up the final bits of this show. We're going to hear a couple excerpts from our national committee chairs. We talked to them and released it last week for Hoopsville members, and it's still available exclusively for Hoopsville members right now in the early access. We will eventually release the entire interview for everybody to hear, but we'll play some excerpts today. We'll talk about those in a moment. Also, per those excerpts and some of the stuff I've seen online today, I'm going to have my 2 cents reacting to the idea of a dual gender weekend, potentially on the second weekend. And then the other thing we'll dive into, some news and notes. We'll answer some of your questions, and we'll look ahead to Thursday's show, which is already booked for noon Eastern. Daryl asks, men's top 25 rankings must be a crapshoot around 20 to 35. I'm very surprised my Whitworth Pirates are anywhere close to the top 25. The NWC is weak this year, and the Bucks have a weak SOS. So Daryl is one who admittedly put Whitworth on my ballot this week. While you may have a weak schedule, some of the things that I take into account is how are you doing against conference foes? And if you are handling what the conference is throwing at you and handling it well, and I am looking for someone to put in my top 25, that's going to stand out. But admittedly, I probably had 10 to 15 teams I was trying to wedge into 5 slots. And at some point, it's a coin flip. because you could argue till you're blue in the sun, and all of them have flaws. Where is my top 25? Oh, it's upstairs because I'm writing my article on it for the Hoopsville members. It's a crapshoot. It's an absolute crapshoot as to where something is. Here, let me find it here. Number 25, I have questions. Number 24, I have questions. Number 23, I have questions. 22 is new, I have questions. 21 is Whitworth, I have questions. I even have questions in the 2019, 18, 17, 16, 15 slots. Question at 14, question at 13. So it's tough. And I'm surprised more teams aren't getting attention, honestly. I think we're at a point where I don't think it's a coalescing on who the top 25 are. I'm a little surprised there aren't more teams getting votes. And I have a feeling some voters are just like, oh my Lord, like just throwing their hands up when they get down to the 20 to 25 range or even 15 to 25 range and just doing their best to fill in their bracket, their polls. So that's where I would take that. Again, if you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville@d3sports.com. You can also join us on the chat room in YouTube. That's where Daryl asked that last question. Got a new member joined us. Thank you so much. Signing up for the role player opportunity. Coach, you're going to get a chance to watch that interview we'll talk about right now. So we did talk to both committee chairs, as we always do. Kristen Hughes, the Smith AD, who's women's chair, and Cam Fuller, who's the St. Norbert AD and the men's chair. First time I can remember both chairs being athletics director, maybe ever. Grayson, quick note. Grayson, I did read your question. I answered it at the start of the show. And if you look back on the chat, Grayson, there's a lot of answers to it. Anyway, so both chairs, really good. Conversation with them. It was a baseline conversation. We were getting out the basic talking points without being able to go too far in the nitty gritty because they don't have those answers yet. But we were able to talk on a number of topics between the two of them. And I want to play a couple of excerpts for you. And we're going to start with NPI numbers. Their thoughts on just where NPI numbers are currently, their first year having used them, the premise that they were put in without really a ton of being able to look at it and kind of guess, as it were, et cetera, et cetera. So this is, again, an excerpt that is sitting on the Hoopsville archives and available for Hoopsville members currently, but here's a chance to hear some of those excerpts. And again, we start with this conversation about NPI.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, man, when we created the dials, we spent an enormous amount of time on what makes sense for men's basketball, with the understanding that, hey, there might be like sports that have different dials, and that's okay. And that's something that I know at the time the men's and the women's basketball committee talked about, because the dials are different, and we were comfortable with that, because I think at the end of the day, it's two different sports, right? So what's best for men's basketball, what's best for women's basketball? So we really felt like last year our dials went well. We haven't seen a large reason say, oh my gosh, we need to change this dial because this didn't happen. I think what we've really tried to do as a men's basketball committee before my time and during my time is value competition against strong competition and incentivize tough road games and playing tough games away from home. So this will be the second year. I think there's the ability to change the dials after this season, but I don't think there's anything from the men's perspective that we're clamoring to change. I think it'll be really nice to have 2 years of data to be able to see. And I think the biggest mistake sometimes we make just in general is we're quick to make changes instead of quick to seeing how things play out. So I actually like that we've committed to a couple of years to see it out versus let's kind of make small tweaks every year. And before you know, coaches are like, we don't know how to schedule because every year the dials change. So I think that's one thing that hasn't changed with the dials is our really emphasis on playing tough games. And if you can play those tough games and win away from home, you're going to get rewarded for that.
Yeah, I think interesting enough, NPI getting thrown in, the argument from coaches is we have zero clue how to schedule. Kristen, from your perspective, how did it go?
I mean, honestly, better than I think I would have anticipated it going. And to Kim's point, we spent a long time, and a massive shout out to Bethany Donnelly, who was our chair last year. I thought she did an incredible job, not only educating people on MPI, but really doing deep dives into these dials and really helping us as a committee get to a place where we felt pretty good. And I think we got it pretty close. I can see us having some conversations after year 2 around the quality win multiplier. I could see us maybe putting a little more emphasis on SOS. I think we're watching closely where those dials are playing out for the men. And, again, 2 years of data will be great to kind of go back and play with the dials, play with the schools, and kind of try to really get this thing right. But I think you need a little time to shift those things around. So I think we're close, but I'd be surprised if you didn't see a little bit of a shift on the women's side.
So interesting perspective from the two of them about MPI, about not wanting to change the dials. The whole premise was, do you tweak them a little bit, or would you have wanted to tweak one data point after 1 year of doing it? And I think basketball showed, despite a lot of complaints of not getting the data that they wanted ahead of time, that they did a lot of legwork to be ready and consider things that when they finally were given a chance to play around with the dials, they were somewhat prepared. We know some sports that clearly were not prepared. Women's basketball clearly, I think, wants to adjust some things. Men may be okay, but they're going to want to look at a couple of years of data before doing so. And I think the point about scheduling is certainly valid to that. We continue to talk more about the NPI, and again, go to the interview to hear more about that. Another thing that came up was women's basketball times. The idea here being that the men have found a way to stretch out basketball games on especially the first weekend. So that's an all-day event. Women are a little bit more strict. We talked a little bit about, again, the women's manual says that they will be played between 4 and 6:30 on the opening weekend in the local market. And yes, if you have one in the East Coast, one in the Central, and one on the West Coast, if you are so lucky, then they get naturally spread out, but no design to do that. So we talked a little bit about that, and Cam Fuller followed up as well.
Yeah, we've talked about it a little bit. I think the feeling on the committee has been that, if we kind of put the games in sort of these tighter parameters, we just get a better overall base in terms of who's tuning in and trying to watch these games. So we feel like that's been a good way to highlight women's basketball. And to be honest, and this is no criticism, but I think there's certain times that really kind of promote a game, and I think that you thinking about fans and parents actually getting to some of these sites too, playing later in the day, I think helps all those folks get in the seats. And so there's some of that we try to balance as well. So we have not talked about spreading it out a lot. That really hasn't been a big topic for our committee nor a request, because I think what we're doing, at least on the women's side, is working for us and our fans right now.
Cam, what's been the overall thought? How has it played out? I assume we're going to stick with this model. Anything you'd like to adjust to? What's the committee's thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to it. I think from our perspective, we've really looked at is, can we really create that wall-to-wall coverage of D3 men's basketball? And we've been able to do that, where you kind of see it at the Division I level too. If you look at the game times, you're like, gosh, why is this game starting at 3:12? Well, it's because there's another game starting at 3:06, and it really allows where if there's maybe 2 games coming down the wire, they're not overlapping each other. So we can try to promote it, whether that's through our streaming partner with Hudl, which will again have the early rounds of the NCAA tournament, or through social media. So that's something that I can't say it was my idea, because it wasn't before I was on the committee when that decision was made. It's something that we inherited and something that we as a committee see value in, especially as it relates to kind of the end of games and really creating a captive audience for maybe that one game instead of kind of competing interests.
So an interesting dynamic there. We know why the men have gone to those more stretched out game times, providing more showcase for each game, especially on a national perspective, like you see on the D1 side in March Madness. The women's perspective, I can't fault. Wanting to make sure that fans get a chance to be in the seats. If there's an early game, can parents get to those games? Are you going to get individuals sitting there to enjoy the game themselves or not. I think that's a fascinating perspective on it all. And it's interesting because I think that also comes up when we talk about the championship weekend. Last year, men's and women's Final Four and title games overlapped quite a bit. Now it's somewhat unavoidable on the Final Four, but the title games happening almost at the same time, all of them on Watch ESPN or ESPN3, or it's not really ESPN3 anymore, but ESPN Plus. They're all the same thing, essentially. Was a little bit of something people were kind of ticked off about. Yes, you can watch them separately. It's non-linear. You don't have to, they don't have to. It's not like putting them on ESPN2, one at 12, one at 3. But the problem with that is you're going to have multiple devices or not pay attention to social media where maybe you want to enjoy the game you are watching. And so it kind of takes something away from showcasing the division as much. But the answers to this one I thought were interesting about whether we can get these games on ESPN spread out more.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. We definitely talked about it, and I think there's a lot of, a lot of personalities at the table, so to speak, when you're trying to navigate all these pieces with ESPN, with host sites. I think at the end of the day, yes, if we could have these championships airing at different times so that you really can showcase and highlight each of these games, then that makes the absolute most sense. And so I know that we definitely talked about that in terms of trying to pick good times, but then you're trying to also balance that with playing games at a time that makes sense for these programs, right? Because it's not just the tip of the game. It's, it backs everything else up, right? Like you build your schedule backwards in terms of shoot-arounds and meals and scouting reports. And so you got to try to balance what's really in the best competitive interest of the programs, not just what's available in terms of a timing slot. And so if you can hit that perfect answer, then I think that's great. I don't know if it's always possible, but that would certainly be the intent.
Cam, your thoughts on the same question?
Yeah, I think Kristen hit the nail on the head. There's so many competing forces, right, in terms of what else is out there, what's best for that community. Even when we work with Fort Wayne, as we're working on game times for the Elite Eight, it's hey, what makes sense from a community standpoint, which that may not work for another championship that's in the same timing. So I think what we've really tried to do is figure out what's best for men's basketball, what's best for the community we're in, and what's best for the teams that are participating. And if that means that we may overlap somewhere, that's probably going to happen kind of no matter how the cake is sliced. But we've also tried to do is think through as we especially get later on, like when we get to the Elite Eight, the Final Four, the national championship, how do we find times that we can hopefully ensure that there's butts in the seats as well to make sure that, one of the things that, as I think back in my time in a conference office when we would survey our student athletes, a lot of it was, hey, it feels like a championship when there's people there, right? So playing a championship game at 10 a.m. probably doesn't make sense, but can we play it at noon or 2 or 5 when we think we can get people in the seats, right? So that certainly plays a factor as well.
So interesting thoughts. Cam talking about, making sure you have people there because then it feels that way, but we play earlier games to stretch out the men's basketball schedule on the opening weekend. I think there's a tug of war there. I'm for both. I think the solution in terms of when we go back to a normal championship, when we have championship weekends for both men and women at the same time, I think the solution, believe it or not, comes from soccer, but for different reasons. Now, men's and women's soccer are at the same site. And a few years ago, they finally moved off of them all playing on the same day, meaning you had 4 semifinals on a Friday and 2 title games on a Saturday. And when they went to instituting that you had to have a day off between semis and championship, they went to an alternating schedule. So one year you'll have one gender Thursday, Saturday, semi-title, and then the other Friday, Sunday, and then they alternate with those two. So one year it's one order, and the next year it's the next, and you go back and forth. I know men and women's basketball has debated and talked about going to one site for a men's and women's championship weekend, and if that's the case, they're going to have to go to that soccer model where one plays on Thursday with its semi, the other plays on Friday with its semi, then one title game. with supposed all-star game on Saturday, one title game with a supposed all-star game on Sunday. Maybe we do that if they're not even at the same site. Maybe that's our solution here to get men's and women's basketball a little bit more of the showcase ability. This year, that would mean, in my opinion, Elite Eight for men on Thursday, semifinals for women on Friday, semifinals with All-Star game on Saturday for men, title game with All-Star game for women on Sunday. And then we move forward with that. That gives the semifinals each their own showcasing time and gives the title games their own showcase time instead of being on top of each other and not in the way of each other. That's probably the best solution here. But it's got to come from an approach of, imagine if these were the same location and we were doing this, how would we tackle it? Now, soccer, if you're wondering about practices, you can practice on almost any soccer field. It's not going to dictate tremendously a lot on the game because while the field is certainly the field, a lot of times the competition field is not allowed to be used in soccer because they don't want to tear it up unless it's a turf field like at Roanoke College, that is, in Salem. So a lot of times you may practice elsewhere. In basketball, at least for the final set of practices, especially the shoot-arounds, you want to be on the court shooting where you are because shooting lines are so important and the feel of a court is so important. It's different with the sport of basketball, which gets us to the ideal of dual championship. This came up on our interview. The Snyder brothers asked Cam Fuller about it in their conversation with him. Now, they only talked to Cam. We talked to Kristen. But the idea that you've got an opportunity this year, as we've had in other years, to have a dual weekend of one school, if possible, if in position, to host one single men's game in the round of 16, while also hosting a pod of games on the women's side in the round of 16 and 8, and whether either of these committees would consider it.
Yeah, David, I don't think so. I mean, I think we've taken a pretty firm stance on, if you had both genders at the same school. However, I will say we have not done a real deep dive into this situation where the men have the joint championship. And so that may be a little bit of a wrinkle that at the very least I know our committee would talk about. And at the end of the day, whether we stay firm in the policy or open up that door and do it, I think it's going to all just be about, is it giving the student athlete and these programs and these teams the best experience? And that's what we'll come down to. So I won't say it's a hard no. It's definitely something that we've talked about, though, in much more straightforward terms when there's not a joint championship. So if that case was presented, I think at the very least it would be, just due diligence to at least talk that through and see if it's a possibility and try to coordinate with the men if so.
Cam, I'll get your answer before a follow-up on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that I've enjoyed about Kristen and her leadership is, I don't know whether it's the good, the bad, just the questions. We talk regularly, right, about, hey, here's some uniqueness of the men's championship, and hey, here's the uniqueness of the women's championship. Let's have those conversations. And this is something that Kristen and I talked earlier this week, and it's something we're in discussions about, because I think, like any good committee member, it's having those conversations both with the men's committee to see is there an appetite, and if so, having those conversations with Kristen and the staff at the NCAA to see, knowing this isn't the quote unquote normal year, is that a conversation we want to have? So there's a number of things that Kristen and I have talked about over the last few months as we've assumed the chair roles, and that this is one of those things. And that's what I appreciate about Kristen and her leadership is, hey, let's at least have the conversation versus maybe trying to figure this out in February when we're like, oh gosh, this could present itself. So let's try to plow that ground now.
So there was their take on whether this would happen. And I find the conversation a little bit interesting because they are discussing the possibility of this. I'm going to speak more on that in a minute, but there's one wrinkle everyone needs to consider. And that is a simple fact that they could make a decision and ultimately get vetoed on it. And we've seen this happen in other sports. I even think in basketball. You have an idea, you want to implement it, you think you've got some good thing, and then it goes up to Championships Committee, the overall Championships Committee, to ratify and approve. And Championship Committee will come back and say, no, and here are our reasons. We discussed that possibility.
Yeah, they definitely could. I mean, I think, again, that's part of like what we're charged with, right? To come up with a really solid rationale for what we want to do and why. And I think the Champs Committee tries to honor those decisions as long as it all makes sense for the whole association. So, again, to Cam's point, I think we would try to have that conversation together and see what makes the best sense for all the programs.
So that gets me to my 2 cents. Is this a good idea? Oh, on paper, I think it's a lovely idea. Get a chance to have one school hosting both genders, maybe make it a bigger event, et cetera, et cetera. Sure, sounds great. But we've had these opportunities in the past, and they've either never happened, never been discussed, or it's been a moot point. In 2013, the first time we even broached this idea, men's tournament wasn't even 64, it was 62. We didn't go down this road. In 2020, we weren't going down this road. Now, some of this may be because we didn't have scenarios. I do realize that. I haven't been able to triple check this. And the women have hosted or have done this tournament twice now successfully. And each time they have had a round of 16, it's not been brought up as a topic. Here's the thing that I don't think anybody truly appreciates when considering this idea. The only way it could happen would be 4 sites on Saturday. I feel like I'm missing an interview here. Bear with me a second, because I thought there was one other thing that we discussed that would be relevant here. No, I don't see. Oh, no. Is this it? Let me open this real quick. No, that is not it. I apologize, folks. Oh, no, maybe it is. You know what? I'm going to run this. I think this may be the soundbite I am looking for. So the topic was, when we discussed this, was the idea. Well, I'm just going to run it and see if it's relevant. I apologize. I'm shooting from the hip a little bit here because I can't remember what the answer to this question was. Now joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline. That was a fixed audio that I had. That's what that clip was. So I don't have the clip I was looking for. But essentially, you have a scenario where women have not done this. The only way, it was whether, who plays on Friday and Saturday. That's the clip I thought I have, and I don't see it now. I swear I pulled it, but apparently not. So the point being is the men have to choose on Friday or Saturday who will play the Friday games or the Saturday games in that round of 16. And we did ask Cam that. I thought I clipped it. I did not. So only the teams on Saturday are going to get this chance. The men's teams who host on Saturday. The men's teams that host on Friday will not. So here's the first downfall I see on this. Arguably, let's say we have either more than 4, or for logistical reasons, you can't put all 4 that you may have, or all 3 that you have on Saturday on the men's side that coincide with the women. And I'm shooting a little from the hip on this too, because we just don't know who will be hosting. You cannot guarantee that everybody will get this opportunity. And so how do you now decide who gets that right on Friday and who gets that right on Saturday, considering you want equal rest ahead of the Thursday Elite 8 games? So you're not necessarily going to want opponents on Friday to be playing opponents on Saturday, i.e., in the next round, you don't want somebody who will have had an extra days off rest. It's just not fair. So everybody on Friday will be on one part of the bracket that plays at the same time, will play on Thursday in the Elite 8, and everybody on Saturday will then be their opponents on Thursday. So the rest is equal. So you got to make sure that everybody is fair in that case. And you have to make that decision when you bracket. Think about it. You have to make that decision when you bracket. So there's no guarantees that you can make sure that somebody who has a hosting opportunity on that next week in the round of 16 with their women will get that opportunity. They may be stuck on a Friday game because you can't do it on Friday. You can't do it on Friday because the women are going to have semifinals are going to have a round of 16 on Friday. So that's 2 sets a game. You're not going to add a third game to that because you got to get all the shoot-arounds down. That's 8 teams that have to do shoot-arounds on the gym ahead of 3 games. There's no time in the world to do that. Or someone's going to be shooting around it way too early in the morning. But there's no time anyway. Because I think shoot-arounds are an hour. Let's just say they're an hour with built-in time. So 50 minutes with a 10-minute, buffer. You don't have 10 hours in the day, okay? So they can't be Friday. The only reasonable chance is Saturday, where you'll be down on the women's side to the Elite Eight. So you have 1 game at the women's site, along with the 1 game on the men's site. At least shoot-around that day, you're talking about 4 teams. That is manageable. We know that because of the previous pods. But what do men do the previous day while the women's games are going on? Well, they're not going to be able to practice on that court. They're going to have to practice at another facility. So now you have to have a high school in the area, or you have to have another gym that's suitable, etc., for those 2 teams in the round of 16 on the men's side to practice. Do you see where these logistics become more and more complicated? So just on the logistical side, this is why hosting in general 2 pods is out of question. And why I don't see this being feasible. If they can figure it out, I'm endorsing it because it's great, right? I think it's a little unfair that in previous iterations, it either wasn't discussed, wasn't approved, or didn't feel it was fair and proper, that now we're figuring out. But I do appreciate that we evolve with things and we try and improve things and we try and get things that couldn't be done in the past done now. But those same logistical challenges now existed then. And you're not guaranteed you're going to be hosting at institutions that have multiple gyms, that have multiple facilities, that have the ability to handle. You're not going to Christopher Newport necessarily. You're not going to Wisconsin Eau Claire or like, you don't have that guarantee built in when you bracket these tournaments. This decision has to be made before you bracket. You cannot make the decision leading into that weekend. And here's where the biggest part of this is going to hang up. And I got it with the last soundbite about championships committee. From their vantage point, if you're going to do it for one, you have to do it for all. Because the moment other sports see that you pulled this off in basketball, then they're going to come and say, well, we only have 1 round of field hockey, and I'm making up rounds. Please don't hold myself to the sport here. I'm just taking a scenario. But women's lacrosse, for example, you have 1 round that we're playing in the opening weekend while men have a full bracket. We could play women's lacrosse there that weekend at the same time and have both schools, or have the school host both. There are some that do that, by the way, in those sports. Women's lacrosse at Gettysburg and men's lacrosse have been at opposite stadiums. Oh, it's been a very long time. And for some reason that is allowed. So there is an opening here, but it's different facilities. And in basketball, they've been a little leery of allowing only the schools that can pull this off. Stevens Point, who literally has 2 different facilities, in allowing that to happen. So as great an idea as this is, I don't see the feasibility. I don't see the fairness. And I think ultimately, even if men's and women's basketball figures out something, I think championships committee would shoot it down. And they'd shoot it down out of fairness to every other sport in Division III. And that's unfortunate. But I also am of the adage of stay consistent. And on this one, I think you have to stay consistent. I think it's a mixed message to say to a lot of Division III, well, you don't have the capabilities of hosting both, even in this scenario, because you don't have the facilities, but they do. We're going to reward them because they have the facilities. You're going to turn a facilities arms race even more on its head. And some of these schools right now can't afford to be building second facilities on the off chance both of their programs in whatever sport are good enough. I'd argue the Gettysburg idea is probably flawed, though it certainly makes sense. They've got plenty of room. And again, that is a spring sport conversation I'm having. So as much as this idea is great, and as much as I know the Snyder brothers dove into it with Cam Fuller, I'm looking forward to listening to that in its entirety. I only was able to listen to a snippet before I had to do today's show. I don't think it's feasible. And I don't think we should get our hopes up that it's going to happen. I think any conversation that Cam and Kristen has, I suspect doesn't get past them. I think they're going to find the challenges and see where this is going to be too difficult to pull off. And they're going to pull that. It's not even going to get to championships committee. And if it happens to, I'd love to hear the idea, because I think they're going to get cornered on the schedule, on the bracketing alone. But if they pull it off and they get it to championships committee, then I'd be very interested to see if championship committee even thinks about considering it. And the gut feeling I have is no. I think if this was feasible, it would have been solved already. We would have done this in the women's last go around when Transylvania won its national championship. I think we would have figured it out that year. I don't think there's any magic solution this year that changes that scenario. Is it unfortunate? I don't know. I don't know if it's unfortunate. I'm fine with the way the system works, where you alternate priorities. I mean, if NYU men's and women's basketball were, they'd be sitting there going, well, great. You figured it out for this year because of one game. That's a little unfair to us when we had a normal tournament. And I'm absolutely taking fool's arguments here. I get it. But that's the kind of stuff that then will come up. I love the idea. I just don't think it's going to happen. And I don't think we should get any hopes up that it will happen. I think getting hopes up is only going to confuse people come late February or March when suddenly we're saying, oh, no, that's not going to happen. Well, you said a month ago. I get it. I do. I know what was said a month ago. And I think the committees need to do their due diligence and see if it's feasible. Hats off to them, but I don't see how they solve something other committees couldn't solve. And I don't see how this can logistically really get put together. And I then get to the fairness, and I don't think it's fair to those who simply cannot pull this off. And by the way, I don't know how much crossover we're going to have this year in that sense anyway. But I don't like it. I don't love it. Other news and notes. Let's get to that. Top 25. We briefly talked about it last night. Obviously, the men's side, it was a beating. In the top 5 of the previous poll, there were 5 losses. Emory was the only one to get through unscathed, though they only played one game. Their game against Carnegie Mellon got postponed due to the weather. Trinity lost to Wesleyan. Chicago got past Brandeis and then got blitzed by NYU at home. Mount Union lost twice to Heidelberg and Ohio Northern. Randolph Macon lost to Virginia Wesleyan before then taking it out on Randolph, 94-36. Claremont Mudd Scripps and Redlands had a dandy of an overtime game that Redlands won, snapping Claremont Mudd Scripps' 17-game winning streak to start the season. I just basically flipped them in my poll. Christopher Newport had a game against Pfeiffer that was called off. Calvin lost to Trine by 20 and then smoked Hope by 15 in the rivalry. I pulled Calvin from my top 25. You can read about that if you're a Hoopsville member later. Oshkosh lost to Stout. WashU lost to NYU and Brandeis. WashU, out of the top 25, has lost, I think, 4 of their last 5. Or 3 of their last 5, something like that. Platteville lost to River Falls. Scranton lost to Wilkes by 30 and then needed overtime to get past Goucher in Baltimore. Not a good sign. If you lose to Wilkes by 30, nothing against my alma mater, you ought to go blitz them. I know Goucher's got a really good coach. Scranton alma mater. I get all that, but still. Roanoke got past both Lynchburg and Bridgewater. I think that's pretty solid. Stevens Point got past River Falls, but couldn't get past La Crosse. And York lost weirdly to Albright by 6. In the receiving votes category, Hampton City took another loss this time to Averett, who's now knocked off a couple of big teams in the ODAC. And that was an overtime by 2. Carnegie Mellon lost to Rochester, and that's where things went off the rails. They could only play Rochester, mainly because it was a bus trip, I'm quite sure. Whitewater lost to Platteville, beat Eau Claire in overtime. Bates lost to St. Joe's of Maine. which we talked about on the Top 25 show last night. Juniata defeated Drew. And Vassar had 3 games, lost to RPI, but beat Bard and Skidmore. They were just getting 1 vote, so 1 top 25 voter was voting for them. That was that was ahead of the previous top 25. On the women's side, there were actually quite a few losses. Smith lost to Tufts, as we talked about. Mount Holyoke and Salve Regina then got absolutely destroyed by Smith. Denison lost their first game of the season to Ohio Wesleyan, but 72-65. Of course, Ohio Wesleyan was 10th ranked at the time, so not a bad loss, but it's your first loss after starting the season 17-0. Illinois Wesleyan lost to Carroll. They're now 13-5. Man, the Titans have me confused. Carroll's playing well. They beat them by 20. Those two, when they played each other, they have not been close games this year. It is wild to me that Carroll and Illinois Wesleyan, who are top of the CCIW, when they have played each other, those games have not been close. And they've split the season. WashU lost to NYU, so they couldn't end NYU's winning streak, which is now at 78 games after getting past WashU and Chicago. It's the next 2 weekends that I think are going to be the trickiest for NYU. Where was I here? Apologies, lost track. Chicago lost to NYU after beating Brandeis. It was a bad day in Chicago on Sunday. Platteville lost both to Whitewater and River Falls. Shenandoah lost to Randolph, and Concordia lost to Bethel in a big battle in the MIAC. McDaniel lost to Hopkins without their best player, Elena Beckett. They have a week off. We'll see if Beckett's available for the Gettysburg game, which is coming up on Wednesday night at McDaniel. Coe lost to Wartburg. McMurray lost to Colorado College. He's in the receiving votes category. Bridgewater lost to W&L in a good game, really good game, before then destroying Virginia Wesleyan. That Bridgewater W&L game, we talked about that on the Top 25 Double Take show last night as well. Calvin lost twice. They're now 9-9. They lost to Trine by 6 and Hope by 2 in overtime. Good games for Calvin, but they're 9-9. Brandeis lost twice, too, to Chicago and WashU. Things have gotten a little bit skittish for Brandeis. And again, we don't even know if they're back home yet. They were on the road at Chicago and WashU, and from what we heard on the live stream, we're not really even sure if they've gotten back to Boston yet. They now flip in the UAA, the schedules, and so now NYU and WashU will travel to, WashU and Chicago will now travel to Brandeis and NYU, etc. The question becomes what happened, as you can probably guess, to that Carnegie schedule. Again, they were scheduled to play both Emory and Rochester this weekend and did not get down to Emory for good reason. I mean, the Cleveland area was getting hit by its own storm. Atlanta was getting hit by its own storm. It's not like that made a whole hill of beans of sense. What they're going to do is they've moved this to the middle of the last week of the season. So Carnegie Mellon will play Rochester and Emory at home on the 20th and 22nd. Then they will travel to Emory to play a game on the 25th, which is in the middle of the week. And then they will come home to play Case Western on the back. Then they'll go on and play Case Western at the end of the week. I'm sure they'll bounce between, fly home, and then drive to Case Western. But they play Case Western on the road on the 28th. So they've moved it to the middle of the next week. Question becomes, big nor'easter possibly this coming weekend. It's a little too early to say. We'll know more on Thursday. What happens to the games that are played in NYU and Brandeis, for example, this weekend, and maybe Rochester this weekend if they're impacted by this storm? I don't know if Atlanta will be impacted by this coming storm. Other news and notes, the American Rivers Conference announced that they are sorry, I'm trying to call up the tweet so I can have it in front of me. They are going to be doing something similar to some others, and that is hosting the conference tournament games as pay-per-view. This is going over like a lead balloon. Hudl is definitely taking on now these pay-per-view ideas after, from what I've been told from multiple sources over the years, not being a proponent of the pay-per-view system at Hudl, even though they have it. But American Rivers Conference says big moments deserve big broadcasts. All tournament games will be available exclusively on the American Rivers Sports Network via Hudl. One game pass is $10. Tournament pass is $20. Big moments deserve big broadcasts. Here's what you got to be careful at the ARC with that statement. That is saying that these broadcasts are going to be more than what you put together in the regular season. And if you don't, and you're now charging for that, you are going to take more flack than you're already taking now. I'm not going to dive into my 2 cents on this, which was going to be my intent today. We'll save it for Thursday. But if you're saying big moments deserve big broadcasts does not mean charging for it. Big broadcasts mean you're going to do larger, more in-depth, multiple camera, replay, etc. broadcasts more than you're doing in the regular season. This is going to be interesting to watch, and we'll talk more about it on Thursday's show for sure. So there you go. I think we covered a lot. I've gone well into overtime. New top 25s are out. If you didn't know, Emory is the new number 1 on the men's side, the second lowest first place votes in top 25 history. The lowest is 8. They have 9. Trinity, Connecticut is only 3 points behind with 15 first place votes. And as Ryan Winnable told us last night, he had a 2, which means there's a whole host of voters. I'd argue 9 of them, who have Trinity outside the top 3. Mary Wash moved up to 3rd. St. Thomas moved up to 4th. Montclair State picked up a first place vote as the lone undefeated team remaining and has moved into 5th. Chicago fell from 2nd to 6th. On the women's side, NYU continues to be the overall number 1, 18 first place votes. Scranton has 5 and Oshkosh 2 to round out the top 3. Johns Hopkins and W&L remain undefeated. They're in the top 5. Smith fell from 4th to 6th. There wasn't a ton of other movement. Carroll moved up. Shenandoah and Concordia moved out. Bethel and La Crosse moved into the top 25. On the men's side, 5 teams moved out. WashU, Platteville, Scranton, Stevens Point, and York, while Wesleyan, NYU, WPI, Whitworth, and F&M moved in. I'll have my top 25 ballot out for the Hoopsville members a little bit later today, and you can read my take on all of that. By the way, we've already got Thursday's show built. Can you believe it? We've already have Thursday set up. We have to record a couple of interviews, but we'll be talking to Colorado College and Immaculata women's programs. And on the men's side, we'll be talking to Russell Sage in Illinois Wesleyan programs. That is coming up on Thursday, noon Eastern. And a reminder, next week, we're scheduled to do the show on Tuesday. If weather changes my travel plans from the weekend for work, we could potentially move it back to Monday. But for now, we'll be doing it on Tuesday. I think that does it. I want to thank all of our guests at Wesleyan, Otterbein, Lebanon Valley, and Southern Maine. Great conversations with everybody today. Really appreciate their time in joining us on the show. Dice Canton said, I just got to Adam Levin at Brandeis Sports Info. Brandeis was able to fly back on a few flights on Monday. They did not have to take a charter bus all the way back after all. Well, that is certainly good news, but a couple of flights to get home is never ideal, but at least Brandeis is back in their beds and dorms and all of that. That is certainly good news, to say the least. With that, we'll wrap things up. I want to thank the sports information directors, Max at Wesleyan, at Otterbein. I forgot for a second. It was Marissa. That's who it was. And Andy, I think, too, as well. I want to thank at Leb Val, the help there from Vincent. That's who. There was a bunch there, but Vincent sent me a bunch of files. I appreciate his assistance with that. And at Southern Maine, Christina, thank you for your help as well. Appreciate it, you all. We'll be on the air Thursday, noon Eastern. Already, again, great Russell Sage, Illinois Wesleyan men, Immaculata Colorado College women. Looking forward to chatting with them. Just a heads up, Colorado College and Immaculata, we're going to be recording those. Those will not air live. And thanks for tuning in. Reminder that our conversation with the National Committee chairs will be coming up for all to hear a little bit very soon. But if you are a Hoopsville member, you can dive into those interviews right now. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops from the WBCA studios. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your support. Please go to buymeacoffee.com/Hoopsville. That's buymeacoffee.com/Hoopsville to join us about and talk about, to help us with our cause. is the best way to say that. You can sign up for a membership. Go below the coffee. If you want to just buy me a coffee and give a straight donation, that's fine. But go below that. There's a membership thing where you can sign up for a monthly membership, gets you some extra perks, including some of these interviews and exclusive conversations. We're going to be starting the Off Court podcast soon. Just trying to line up some guests, get that out the door. That's just me, a podcast that we're looking forward to as well. And with that, we sign off. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope you enjoy it. We will talk to you very soon. You've been watching Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. And thanks to our partners at the Women's Basketball Coaches Association as well. See ya.